Give it a couple seconds. Hello, and welcome to Play and Talk. And we got a bit of a special surprise for you. We got a guest here for us with us tonight. Let's welcome GameOverThirty.
Hey, thanks guys. Appreciate being here. Looking forward to talking some game industry stuff and watching a whole bunch of people die in Apex Legends.
Yeah, and among other things. And first things first, I would like to say Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month to everyone who is watching here.
Yeah. Yeah, and with and since E3 is just about closing up, from what I can tell, there's quite a bit of surprise and some pleasant surprise and all. Yeah.
I would say from my perspective, if I were to go just based off Twitter reactions, it feels like it's the E3 I've seen people have the most negative reaction to, at least from what exposure I have been able to see of it. It feels like a lot of people are just mostly mixed from this year's rather than everywhere else, which usually felt like it was more on the more positive end. I don't know if that's your guys' experience, but that's what I saw.
You guys think that's because the new consoles just aren't here yet? Do you think that's a part of it?
If you can't keep
and
up,
Halo
you're
being
straight
pushed
out
back
of luck.
until not pushed back, but I guess since it's going to be the new Xbox
2020 release.
Yeah, 2020 release.
For when
think,
the new Xbox comes out.
Yeah. Here's one of the most surprising things. Of all the things, a Blair Witch game coming out.
Let's go.
Was anyone expecting a Blair Witch game? I wasn't.
No, definitely not the Blair Witch game. That was a bit of an odd licensing that I saw, but hey, it's cool. I mean, they're trying something different.
Yeah.
I wasn't really familiar with that game, though. I only remember the Blair Witch Project movie, which I don't know if those were just two separate things, so that one I just didn't understand.
I'm the jump master.
Oh, I'm the jump
It looked a little
master.
odd, too. It looked like some kind of a time loop thing or something, because that wasn't the only one. There was another time loop game in there too, with like where they were stuck in the apartment or something. But the Blair Witch one kind of seemed like it was the same thing, similar at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, launching at this hotspot here.
So yeah, definitely from what we've seen on there.
Yeah, really
I
got.
have to say, from otherwise, I haven't really seen too many of them. I kept up with EA Play because that's always usually EA's one of the other games. Though, even if I feel their presentations are more on the awkward end of it, but usually those are the games I look forward to. Ubisoft, they had at least a solid one. I was just disappointed that Skull and Bones got pushed back, because that was one I was looking forward to. But hey, you know, if they wanted to delay it, I'm more than happy to. It's just only that sort of that's too bad.
And Skull and Bones has been one of those games that I saw come out earlier, and it was, what has it been out there for about 2 years now? It keeps getting pushed back 6 months a year, I think, every time they talk about it.
Like Duke Nukem Forever.
I only remembered it from last year's E3. Maybe I just didn't keep up with the one prior to it. I've always been like very inconsistent with E3, with keeping up with the information there. Sometimes I like hyper focus, and sometimes it's more of just what I hear offhand is coming.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a brand new sort of unveiling when I saw it last.
So might want to pick me up. Sorry.
Oh shit! Sorry about
that. It happens. Anyway.
Yeah.
And speaking of Ubisoft, have you seen the newest the stuff for the newest Watch Dogs game, where you play as an old lady? That took the internet by storm.
That one was funny though. I was like, well, certainly I haven't played the Watch Dogs games, but with how easy it was, I'm actually considering picking it up.
Me too. I'm also
cool.
Yeah, I'm also definitely getting.
Certainly is.
Yeah, I'm also definitely getting this new Star Wars game. Yeah.
The Lego Complete Saga or Fallen Order? Because
Fallen Order.
Announced that EA Play. Okay.
Okay,
I liked at least what I saw. It certainly was different, because I think when I saw yours Game Over theories about why people seem more for it, because from my experience with Star Wars games that specifically involve lightsaber combat, usually it involves it either being fast-paced or, where it's kind of in the Force Unleashed's case, more destructive on it. And it seemed like they wanted to tone both of those down for a more, as Respawn puts it, slower, more methodical combat, which is definitely
like Dark Souls,
and
it's more like Dark Souls and Metroid, right?
Sort of like that. I honestly was thinking more of For Honors kind of combat, though obviously a bit faster, though, when I was thinking of how they were putting in what I saw. But sort of like that, which is definitely something that's really not normal for a lightsaber game like this. I'm for it, but if there's anything that demonstration showed me, even though I think it holds promise, I think for me it even further confirmed, oh, this game is going to undersell pretty badly when it comes to launch. It's just for me more of a question of how bad are we talking? Is it more of they're aiming for 7 million and they get more of like 5.5 million? Or is this going to be more on the worst end of, say, 7 million and they maybe crack only 3 million, if that?
You know, I think it's going to be pretty. I think they're going to be in that first one that you said. I can't see it going under 3, but they're probably going to.
It's just like
under
a
expectation.
guesstimate. It's not like hard numbers, but that's kind of like my point of it.
Yeah.
I think what did they say on the last investor call? I think it was they had planned. I'd have to look it up while we're sitting here streaming, but I think they had planned. It was either 6 to 7 or 5 to 6 million for Jedi Fallen Order. Which for EA is actually a relatively conservative estimate, but they've had to cut back their estimates a lot because, as I was talking in our Discord server earlier, a lot of the AAA companies have been modeling on past data and typical market analysis, and the market's been shifting pretty quick, so they've had to adopt their models, and their models are almost always a million. Their models are almost always about $1 million over. So I look at what they say, and then I say, okay, they'll probably come in $1 million under, but I guess we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. One other surprise.
I mean,
yeah.
that's just from what I've seen of it. Because trust me, I don't like to be wrong on things like that, but I also want to make sure that I'm bitterly honest with myself on what game is gonna possibly do good on that.
Yeah.
Because trust me, I think that it's great that they're willing to do this, and also because I was more concerned with it because it was not a first party. If this was a first party exclusive, like either Xbox or PlayStation, I actually wouldn't be singing this tune and think, this could actually work, potentially, but because this is third party and it's not going to have the advantages that something like God of War or Spider-Man has, I'm less convinced that it's going to be anything more than, financially speaking, a disappointment. I'm already going to be predicting that the reaction when it comes out is going to be, it's the best EA Play game, and then obviously shade at Battlefront 2, and blah, 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 and then it's going to be met with basically the end result, which is going to be, it's good, but it's not worth $60, go and buy it on sale. And then these people will act surprised and, wow, why don't third-party single-player games not really sell that well? At least not when they're not attached to really big IPs. So, for me,
You know, there's kind of something crazy about this. I mean, and I know other people have repeated this before, but you get a lot of your typical launch day reactions, but I'll let you guys shoot these guys, but...
Yeah, I kind of fell down the bridge. Thank God there's no fall damage.
Yeah, I only had just the handgun, but there was an energy weapon, but I wasn't going to have much ammo for it. So I was just using what I could probably use better. But at least from my reaction, I already knew that it underselling was not going to be on the basis of because people thought it was bad. I could tell you from the gameplay, it's going to be pretty well received. People are probably going to praise Saw for however much that he's in, because Forrest Whitaker actually took the role. It's probably going to be praised for the combat. People are going to like probably the boss battles that'll be going in, because it looks like there will be a small but certainly memorable amount. But that ultimately, at the end of the day, people were going to say it's too short, because for my history of Star Wars games, they've been pretty short games, usually games you can beat in the afternoon. You can go to the store, buy it, if it has a day one patch, maybe download that, and basically finish it by the time the game's over.
I will say, though,
good one.
The $60 mark, I think people have to reanalyze the whole $60 argument, and I've been saying that now for a couple of years, because the industry, especially for something like Jedi Fallen Order, that $60 is, the further back in time you go, the cheaper and cheaper it becomes. And $60 today is, it's about $38, call it 15 or so years ago. And if people want these first-party games to succeed, or people want these non-monetized, non-serviceable games to succeed, some folks, if they really want to play it, they really need to put their money where their mouth is and spend it up front, and not do the whole, I'm going to wait for the mega sale and pay $20 for it, because what that says to EA is put out a good 7, 8, or 9,
2 kills.
but I'm not going to buy it.
Did you see
And
that?
also, I just dislike that when it comes to these things, they're very dishonest with what they say they do and don't care about, such as, like, when it comes to the things that a AAA budget gives. Oh, I don't really care about graphics. And yeah, I still sparsely recall, though, really recall where Capcom Vancouver's final line of games before they shut down was often how the games had a pretty dated look to them. Almost something that, at least in their eyes, that something that the Xbox 360 could have pulled, at least similarly visually. I still remember all that. Dead Space 4, not Dead Space, Dead Rising 4, I also remember that because I had that same sort of things like that. Or how to say,
damn.
Things such as,
good one, though.
I don't care about having certain voice actors in, but then when those games end up coming out, and specifically when they're good, they always praise about how, oh my god, that voice actor was so amazing, and he really sold me on this or that character. I don't really think anyone is shallow if you just say, I want this or that in my AAA game. That's fine. Just be honest about it. Just don't say that you don't care about this or that thing when you demonstrate when it comes to practice you actually did. Just be honest.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. It's the whole I don't want to admit that I love graphics, but I love the graphics and they make the game for me. And I think it's right. It's okay for people to admit that. You should be, because every time they do one of those surveys or companies produce those surveys, graphics is like always number 1 or number 2. So if everybody's claiming they don't like graphics, who are all these people that are claiming they want that, they're putting these results at the top of the list? It's a very
like, I think, too, when I talk about Star Wars Battlefront 2 and whenever people bring up the visuals on it, though, and how well that it did, even for a game of its scope, how people say, like, oh, but that's a pretty frivolous thing, when I already know beyond a shadow of a doubt, if it released in a pretty subpar sort of graphics space to where it looks like the previous generation could have been, you can be betting your ass that it would be just huge fallout from how could you possibly release it with a look like that.
What happened if Obsidian released New Vegas with a few things changed, but mostly the same today? People will be ripping over like what they did with like Mass Effect Andromeda and Fallout 76. Just like.
And often I just don't also dislike when it comes to games how revisionist history often acts like it. Like when it comes to discussions on 76 and people talk about New Vegas, when I still remember just like it was yesterday, where 76 was considered a pretty meh kind of game to a lot of people, where they considered it more of, I still remember the sentiment being, it feels more like it's an expansion rather than its own game. It feels too similar to 3. 3 was better because these or that reasons. And it was just that then only when it seems like, as I often say is a running joke with Bethesda's games, where people always say whatever was the current one is out is actually one of Bethesda's lesser works, then when the next one comes out, they'll claim actually that was just a misunderstood gem that we didn't understand. And it's just... for it.
Yeah.
But things like that, whereas even like as you said, and I think that's the point I really wish a lot of gaming pundits would do, though, is put your money where your mouth is. You claim you want this or that thing above all else, but your spending habits always demonstrate either the complete opposite or not exactly accurate to what you actually want. You claim about how you don't want anti-monetization in any of the games, but you still keep buying games that have that monetization and have no issue buying their season passes as well. So just admit for what it is. And I always find the barrier for when people say like a season pass is something they should sell or not always super arbitrary. It comes down to this season pass didn't have anything that was to my liking rather than what's the content being offered. As a personal anecdote, Fallout 4 Season Pass was something I felt was more of a mixed bag for the content. Not because I thought it wasn't plentiful, but I felt because the content wasn't something that appealed to me specifically.
Yeah.
Like Fallout, like Nuka World, how that one was pretty much something that if you were not an evil character, it didn't offer you much. You could basically finish it in less than an hour. And for me, that felt like something that was not something that was geared, again, to me. Yeah. But I feel like to a lot of people, as what I can believe, it appealed to them a lot. They love, though, that the characters actually had more of a reason to be able to do what they're doing.
Oh, shit.
I go, yeah, it's great that they feel that way.
Yeah. Can you actually do like face an evil character outside Nuka World? I kind of forget. It's been a while.
You can, but it's pretty limited only to extort this person. I guess maybe act coldly to this guy, but nothing particularly major. Or any of the evil things you could do
murder
is more closer to small.
Right.
What?
You couldn't destroy everything and basically, what's the word I'm looking
Pull
for?
a channel like run like from
completely evil,
Undertale.
right?
Pull a channel like
Yeah, you couldn't really do that. I mean, at worst, you could be cold, but I'd hardly say anything you could do was outright evil. Not like, say, in New Vegas, where you could actually use the NCR.
And the Legion, for just and the Legion. In the
Legion's quest, where you could actually keep massacring NCR citizens just for the explicit purpose of making their morale go bad. I mean, but really, that's about really it. So at least it offered decent variations. I feel like for me, when it comes to RPGs, they often struggle when it comes to when they give you the options to be evil. They're pretty sparse, and they're not things that, at least from my view of games, maybe it's mine's probably way more limited than, say, GameOverThirty's, but it feels like they never really have anything outright game-changing or something that really doesn't negate you too badly. Being evil doesn't really limit what exactly you can do, besides some pretty negligible things.
I'm not entirely sure
like
if
in Fallout 3, for instance, the worst that your evil decisions can do is make you only certain companions not viable, and that's it.
And even then, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this?
And even still, the companions aren't necessary to play the game, nor are they something that is like you're going to straight up, I guess, like this, their loss of not having it would be just devastating to you as a player. I mean, I'm not sure how I would fix it, but I'm at least saying that's my perspective when I play these things.
And we got killed.
What is going on here?
We landed on one of these things, and then we got killed. At least Shadowhawk got killed,
and got slaughtered because someone was at that spot. Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's why I'm at least glad that I for these things, developers who are often on Twitter, though, because it has certainly, as I started going more researching into the industry, which I will admit started when Battlefront 2 2017 came out, because I wanted to start learning so I could see like where exactly they did this or that decision, and so that I could learn things like that. And I feel that I've honestly started refining how I do things, like one from Ask a Game Dev, though, which I've started taking to heart when it comes to criticism, which is speak problems but do not propose solutions, because very often you don't know what exactly sort of limitations the devs could be working with. So I often, for me, just go and stick to just telling myself or to anyone else, here's what I don't like and why I don't like it, but I don't really propose how I would fix it, because I often don't know if that solution is really the right one.
Yeah.
Oh,
this kind of reminds me of, you ever heard of this little fan game design document called Mass Effect 3 Vindication? As a game dev covered it years ago, and...
Oh yeah, that one, which is like some 500-page essay thing of how they would fit Mass Effect 3, which often I always find when it comes to essays on how they would fix this movie, that game, whatever, I often find they would probably have been just as bad as the game they got, or again, from their perspective, it just would have been a different kind of fuck-up. Excuse my language.
Well, because it turns into this is what I wanted, so mold this around me, instead of kind of looking at the bigger picture of this is the game we developed, now how would we even slightly modify that to make a better game? It just becomes this very centric, very self-oriented approach to whether it be the game or the movie or the... You know, you're right, we'll oftentimes have the same number of problems, if not more, less than the original art.
I just say like the same amount, just a different kind of screw up, basically.
Yeah.
For some reason, my stream has been going to a it's fragmented, meaning how come I'm always the job master? It seems like a weird kind of luck.
I know this is the longest streak I've seen you be the jump master on so far. I guess because since we're at least in a 2-man squad, so maybe it tries to favor for that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there a determination in this game? Because I play on PC a whole lot, and is there a determination for the jump master mechanic? Or is it just random?
Not that I've ever been aware of.
Me neither.
It seems like a random thing.
Yeah, it's like, what is the method to the madness?
Yeah, but it's just definitely been finding that, and especially people who debunk stuff like that, because for me, though, definitely, and especially when it comes to the DLC end, and especially because when I start looking at a lot of older games, whenever people compare generations, I always get this feeling that people just always make the older generation feel much bigger than it was. Like, just as a thought experiment, I did maybe making like a single YouTube video on it, like if I ever get around to it, which is where I was saying about why I personally think Battlefront 2 2017 was better than 2005. I think that people who like it are fine, though. I don't really see any reason.
Oh shit!
But especially in the area of where people argue for content, I feel like it's way overblown as to how much more the original had. When I did the calculations, it was pretty slight. Maps Battlefront 2 launched with 11. I'm not counting crate because I put that in the post category, which is like, what is it when day one happens? What is it you have? And in Battlefront 2 2005, total. But really, that's the only area where I would say there was actually a kind of big difference to it. Whereas I found in other areas, such as what were the launch characters that were in. Battlefront 2 2017 launched with a total of 7 heroes and 7 villains, and then also with the
8 heroes, I think?
2005,
you mean 8?
which launched with about 17.
Do you mean 8 heroes? 8.
Yeah, I meant 14, as in 7 heroes and 7 villains in Battlefront 2.
I misheard you. Okay, I'm cool. Okay, sorry.
You're probably thinking 8 because, throwing in Phasma and Finn afterwards did boost it to 8 because that was only, like, less than a month after launch. But I'm going for the sake of argument of, like, what was launch day that they had on there, so that because of whatever arguments afterwards.
Yeah.
And so from that, I saw from that was, aside from the hero galleries only being smaller, like, only by a thin margin, Battlefront 2 2005 17 as opposed to 2017's 14, but it was still pretty minimal. And also there was the other problem. The original games had fixed maps where you could play certain characters, and many of them got on the shorter end of the stick. Anakin Skywalker, for instance, was only playable on one map, Mustafar, on the Empire side.
Oof.
He would be available on a second map for Yavin 4 Arena, but that was a DLC pack that me and a lot of others didn't even know existed. And
wait, what? Really?
Even have bought because
really?
We have online. Yes, there was originally 17 maps, but then there were 4 additional ones. But that was Bespin, Renvar, Harbor, and Citadel, as well as Yavin 4 Arena. All of them from the previous one. So I looked on that, and then I also compared to game modes. The Battlefront 2 2017 launched with 5 modes, and 2000, I saw it. And 2005 launched with 6. And even still, one of those modes, at least at launch, the Assault Hero mode that was there, which is basically its heroes versus villains, was initially available only on Mos Eisley. So it meant that outside of that one map, there was no other map you could play it on, but the DLC packs made it so they made it more available. And then from there, I found that was it, and I found it quite stunning that the gaps that were between them were really nowhere near as big as I saw.
Hey, Shadowhawk, you're at the Chub Master this time, finally.
I know.
Straight broken!
So I decided to do that as a thought experiment on there, and I actually did find it quite stunning that for a lot of people, I often find in game pundits claiming that games back then gave us so much more content, but when I started comparing across series titles, that actually really is true, but only in a very, very marginal sense. Like maybe the previous games maybe had 1, 2, 3 extra maps maybe, when really it was still just
it's about quantity over quality in their case.
Introducing your champion.
It's kind of this. It's just this bullshit metric that people use all the time, and especially the further back you go in the games industry. And I'm well into my 30s now, and I've been playing games for a long time. There was a period of time where you would buy for $60 or $70. There was even a period of time I remember in the late 90s, or was it with the late 80s? And I look up, games were nearing about $70 a game, and you would buy, generally speaking, you'd buy a game that might have 4 hours of content in it and drop $60 or $70 on it. Yeah, I mean, it might be called like Final Fight or something, right? And those were $60 or $70 games, depending on what store you bought it at. So the expectations have grown so exponentially that people have these fond memories of games they used to play.
Nostalgia is
value for your money.
Yeah, nostalgia is such a fickle thing.
Is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, nostalgia. Right, nostalgia just tears people apart because they remember things the way they want to remember them, but it's very. And that's why that's why.
Sorry, I just like. Whoa! Oh shit!
Contact with hostile.
I'm sorry. Repeat that game over 30. I think you cut off briefly.
Sorry, there was like a hostile player. It's like, oh shit.
It's really hard to talk objectively with people about the video games industry because a lot of times a large amount of the community, I hate that term, but I don't know any other way to use it, they base a lot of their analysis on the way that they felt at the time. Yeah, when you point things out to them, they retreat into their shells of just generalities like, oh, well, games were just better back then, or well, at least they didn't have loot boxes back then. But then you look at things comparatively, and you look at like just the thousands of games and the quality and the content and the graphics and everything that you get today. And shit, you can play half the games out there today for free.
Yeah.
You can find a game you can play for free and play it forever.
Like RuneScape, Apex Legends, Fortnite. Speaking of battle royales, has anyone tried the battle royale mode for Fallout 76, the Nuclear Winter?
About to, probably this weekend. But
I
actually,
did not.
to go to your point, the biggest thing that I actually experienced that Senator can talk about is actually in the original Battlefront 2 games. I can explain in vivid detail why I thought the newer ones were better. Between one, the heroes in the original ones, I didn't like how they were all the same as far as functionality, and even worse, I often don't like it when character is broken or overpowered, because very often I feel like it's just a sort of code for I'm not particularly good at this game. But in that game, it was honestly really comical as to how powerful the heroes were. I make a joke that is in, if you've seen the movie Brightburn, how it's sort of like because Brandon is basically Superman in the movie, but just evil, how there's sort of a running thing where he can always show up at any given location despite being there literally only 1 second prior. That's the experience of heroes in this. I could be on one completely opposite end of the map. If I find a command post that's being captured on the other side, I can show up before it ever even gets captured and slaughter anyone who was even there.
Ah, crap.
And I think to myself, if I was playing that online, I would probably just rage quit constantly because I'd be like, what's the point? I can't fight this guy. He's too strong. He can kill me with only like maybe 2 lightsaber strikes. And also the other thing is that, and you may think, oh, well, the lightsaber heroes, maybe they have a sort of disadvantage where they can't engage at range. No, they don't. Most of them have lightsaber throws, and lightsaber throws can kill you in only 1 hit.
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
You can have to only aim to where the lightsaber coming back to you hits them.
While there's a cooldown,
that's worst case scenario.
While there's a cooldown in the current version.
Oh, and also no cooldowns for the abilities either. The abilities are all related to your stamina, but your stamina regenerates so fast you will never find yourself in a scenario
that it's
where
essentially
you don't have it.
Yeah,
Holy shit! Really?
It's not even there.
So there's not even an ability there, and really the only way you could feasibly die as a lightsaber hero is to actually engage the entire enemy team up front, and depending on your playstyles, there's still a fair chance you could still take them on anyway. It's really that pathetic as far as how it goes. I know this because I would test this against bots from all different ones, and I just found that experience where I thought if I was playing this on multiplayer, I can't imagine the frustration I would feel. And the reason I'm talking lightsaber heroes the most, even though there are blaster ones, the Republic side has only lightsaber heroes. So this means that regardless of what map the Republic is on, there is always a lightsaber hero there at any given map
always
that's
this
there.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
And also the other problem is that there was often a lot of horrible balancing between the heroes. The problem is that while blaster heroes are also pretty ridiculously overpowered, they are completely defenseless against lightsaber ones. So a strategy you could use is, let's say you're playing Darth Vader on Endor because Han Solo is the rebel leader on there. I could rush up to him, choke him where he is completely unable to use any abilities, and do 2 to 3 strikes and take out Han Solo. Congratulations, you lost your hero, and I can now slaughter your troops.
We're gonna land it. We're gonna land. Okay, I'm gonna keep an eye.
Oh, and also I found.
Oh crap! Oh crap!
And for that though, that's why there's often
not again.
that.
I actually just gonna land.
They often have like Boba Fett going up against Luke Skywalker. Very often, Jango Fett would be going up against any particular Jedi on a given map. And in general, it was so frustrating, though, to see how horribly balanced it was, because instead of giving you the option to play as certain heroes, they instead opted to do more of a what was maybe the planet that this character would most likely appear in canonically to the movies, which ended up just really wrecking balancing in effect for, I guess, a very thin attempt at authenticity. I'm not doubting that Pandemic's guys really cared for their work, though, and they wanted to. I understand that. But the problem really was that this game, like a lot of the other Star Wars games, were very underfunded and were being pushed out way too fast where they couldn't refine the pieces that they were making.
Oh,
so
shit.
very often what people had
Really?
their best stuff for was more of the idea that it presented rather than how the actual execution was.
Really?
Yeah, right. 'Cause it was largely a power fantasy, right? Let's just make these guys as powerful as we can. Put it out there. What year was that? What year? Do you remember what year
That was
came out?
2005. was
2005 for the
Battlefront
for Battlefront 2,
original
and
game.
2004 for the first Battlefront game. Is there a time
So
there
a
somewhere?
year apart from those.
I think it was 2003, 2005, 2004 for the first Battlefront.
No, it was 2004. For the first game. Only a one.
Alright, knock down someone.
So hence why I say this. I know I bring up Star Wars a lot though, because often I feel like in many ways it sort of resembles different areas of gaming, and that's why I often, like as you said though, where people often retreat to their shells when I tell them that, because they act like the other ones. Because the reason why in Battlefront 2:17, one of the reasons I love is how different the heroes are. I can't play Luke in Battlefront 2 2017 the same way I would Rey or Yoda or Obi-Wan or Anakin. Each one always has a different, distinct play style that I can always adopt.
There's
I can also, best of all, never have a selection. If I want to play Luke on a map, I can do whatever. Do I want to play Count Dooku on Starkiller Base? I can go for it. Do I want to play Darth Vader on Naboo? Can be more than happy to do so.
Yeah.
I always have the greatest sense of choice, because for me, having authenticity in areas like that really for me isn't something that adds to it, where for me it's more selective on when you do it, and it's best not to sacrifice everything for that vein. It's totally okay to do so.
Yeah.
And in general, I felt like a lot of Star Wars games, because they were often more of, I don't want to say rushed out because I feel it's disrespectful to the devs there, but because they were put on such short deadlines and also put on very thin budgets, these games I often found don't age that well past when I first played them years ago. So hence why a lot of them for me often just feel very dated, and it just feels like it doesn't hold up very well. Whereas regardless of how old I get, I'm going to feel like Battlefront 2015 and Battlefront 2 2017 are going to be games I'm still going to have fond memories of regardless of what time I'm in, because of how much was put in.
Yeah.
As well as also the additional support after that.
Can we?
So that's why for me, I have liked
Shadowhawk, can we bring back to the E3 theme, because E3 is
yeah, sure. I was just only mentioning that because because GameOverThirty is that, and I feel like he'd be a good voice to hear any of that stuff on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that's why.
Yeah,
I appreciate the opinion.
Yeah, do you want to also surprise me? Have you seen the DLCs for I'm surprised you're playing it has Pathfinder. Anyway, the DLCs for not only the DLCs for Smash game, the Dragon Quest and what was it? Banjo-Kazooie.
I wasn't really
Banjo-Kazooie.
paying attention to Smash because I don't own a Switch at the moment, really, because I just can't afford to get one right now. But I at least still have liked what they were showing, and if I certainly got a Switch, I'd be more than happy to go and do that.
You know what? Smash for me is one of those games that I played it a ton when I was in school.
Okay. Yeah.
I played it a ton after my college years, and then something happened right around to go back to my name, right around my 30s, in edging past my 30s. Smash kind of fell out of favor with me. I don't play it much anymore. I think I found myself concentrating on experiences that were broader, I should say.
Or other way
I think
around.
something, say, more like, like, I'll just name the game I really enjoyed, like Dragon Age Inquisition, right?
Yeah.
And I found myself having more fun playing something like that than logging into Smash. And I even got the Smash Brothers for the Wii U. I actually have it. And I played it some. But then here's another big problem I found too. Like, if you don't stick with Smash and then you try to play it online, it is a difficult game for all things considered, considering it's not a difficult game to just pick up and play. But it's a difficult game to pick up and play online because everybody who's playing online is pretty good. So you have to dedicate some time to it to, let's call it, be decent. And when you kind of hit the age where I'm at, where you're juggling a lot of things, juggling real life, I got ice hockey on the side, I've got my kid now, I got my wife and my family to worry about, right? So picking up a plan online was something that kind of fell out of favor with me, but in something like first-person shooters that I've been playing my entire life, like I have been playing first-person shooters since I could play on a PC. I played original
Doom.
I played original Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake and stuff, and we played the shit out of those when I was a kid. And I can still pick up and play first-person shooters and be, I'll call it, okay at them. But like Smash has completely just left my sphere of
Yeah,
with
not your
desire, right?
not your thing,
Right.
basically.
Yeah, but I appreciate when Nintendo
That's
does
understandable.
the game.
Yeah.
I appreciate what Nintendo does with the game because it's a good game with a huge following, and their business model for it is really respectable because it's basically buy the game. I don't even does the current Smash even have any pay for DLC or
Yes,
or
they
is it
do.
buy the game to get it?
Yeah, it
There are
does.
packs like Joker from Persona is there.
Okay.
There was also some others, but yeah, I would say aside from that season pass, usually it has been for Nintendo's all intents and purposes, usually still one and done games, which are respectable. I just feel like games are always different. In
And
what
don't
you
forget,
apply that to.
don't forget
Like,
Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild has
people will disagree
DLC.
with me on this, but honestly, if Skyrim basically adopted that sort of live service model, I think I'd be for that because of how many hours I invested in the game and always just wanting to do more stuff in there that was officially supported. I mean, I'm not going to complain. I still got my money's worth, but I feel like usually there's just games out there that I certainly would like extra support for. But Nintendo games have always felt like I'm just totally satisfied with what they give me, and I don't have a desire to get things like, say, DLC that gives me missions or whatever. At least from my
funny thing about Skyrim and Fallout 4, they technically have live services in forms of the content club, well, creator club, creation club.
Dude, I don't even know if they still support that.
They still support that because one of the latest things for Fallout 4 is the addition of the suits from Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sweet.
And
that's something that I always like to remind people of with these live services today. And people like Jim Sterling and have turned that into a dirty word. We have had live services since
the 90s.
The 90s?
Yeah, and it's a complete. Yeah, I mean we had EverQuest.
It was like if I were to ask
MMOs.
What do you think is MMOs?
Yeah, so essentially live services is just another word saying ow. Okay, besides ow, it's MMOs. They're MMOs in another form. Or another word.
Oh, nice punch. Get him.
Like,
Yeah.
I honestly never understood why these people make it such a difference between expansion packs and the DLCs we would get later when, at least from just looking at it from a history standpoint, I never found the difference between the two.
Speaking of Breath of the Wild, I'm kind of surprised Nintendo's working on a sequel to Breath of the Wild. And I see the trailer, and
I'm not surprised, really. It was a super successful game for the Switch. It was basically a console seller just off its existence. Yep. So a sequel for me felt inevitable. I always just, when these things question, when is it coming, rather than is it going to happen? If I ever question if a sequel's coming, it's when the sales feel very so-so. Like, for Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, for instance, I really liked the game, but when I was seeing its sales, I was questioning if a sequel was going to be made by Platinum, but unfortunately, it never got around to that because its sales didn't do well, really. Yeah. And I also think that's a big reason was because nobody knew when the game came out. I still remember that when I got the game, it was a year after, I think it was like a year or two after it came out, because I'm like, wait, this came out already? And even by that point, all the DLCs were released.
Wait, DLCs for what exactly?
I'm really surprised. Go ahead.
What DLCs for what game exactly? Sorry, I kind of missed that, wasn't paying attention.
Oh, I was saying Metal Gear Rising. It was just the game that Platinum Games made. That was basically a sort of hack and slash.
Oh, I know the game. I've seen like gameplay footage of it. There's DLC. Like there's.
Yeah, there was two of them. There was the Samuel DLC, where basically we get to see as to how Samuel ended up going to join Stephen Armstrong in the game, and then there was the one with Blade Wolf, where he was on some missions in the Middle East before we saw his sort of backstory to it. Those were both released for free, but yeah, the game, by the time I even knew of its existence, those packs were already available and completely free. So I was honestly puzzled as to how it possibly managed to not really be able to make it known that it even came out. It felt like the most quiet release I saw of anything, be it a game, movie, or whatever.
I love the idea of Breath of the Wild because I think Nintendo's playing it really smart because they're probably lowering their development costs by using.
By using the same engine, because
how does it? It's the same engine.
Yeah, how long does it take exactly to make an engine? How long does it take them to make an engine? Like, it would take years, I suppose?
Depends on what you want to do. I mean, all the costs, if you the difference between in-housing it versus buying, right? And sometimes those costs can be very competitive. Now, asking game dev can tell you the difference, but it all becomes what kind of time you're going to put into it, right? What kind of engine are you building, versus just going out and say paying downloading, I guess, Unreal 4 and then paying the licensing fees once you you hit a certain threshold in their usage. They have all kinds of contractual usage agreements. Like once you hit a certain threshold, then you actually have to pay us, right? But that's where that's the challenge. So a lot of purpose-built engines. So generally speaking, and this stuff is all general, but generally speaking, a lot of companies will do purpose-built engines, and those engines are very good at doing one thing. And how they save money over time, just like the Breath of the Wild engine, as this appears to be, is that you save money over time by reusing it. So you dumped a whole ton of money and expenses into building the engine the first time. But then for the next 2, 3, 4, 10, 15, 20 years, you continue to use that same underlying engine with minor changes. Maybe
like with Bethesda's engine, weren't people ragging on?
That's why they haven't switched, because they save so much money from using that same ancient ass engine. That's why they never changed, because it would be very expensive.
One of my friends online.
Also, doesn't it save work as well? Like, because there are assets that are ready to use, you also can lower how much work you have to do.
One of my friends online talked about why they switched to they played No Man's Sky instead. It's because the physics were a little wonky while playing Fallout 76. And speaking of Fallout 76, I'm honestly surprised that they're bringing in human NPCs in one of the upcoming one of the upcoming patches. So it's like.
I know there was often a lot of people who were joking as to think, oh my god, it has to be in a sad state for that. But truth be told, I was just glad that Bethesda always was just willing to take a big chance when it came to their big titles. Because I often have this philosophy where I'd rather have a flawed game or movie that takes chances as opposed to a better executed game that would have played it safe. For this one, I often have to say that it was certainly a sort of bold decision for them to try on that. And honestly, I prefer that it failed and them rectifying it as opposed to them just playing it safe to begin with.
Yeah.
It certainly is something, because very often I find, at least personally with ideas, very often you don't know if it's going to be good or not unless you've actually tried it in the first place.
Yeah.
Prediction is a very tricky thing, and very often predicting the truth or predicting the future is at times sometimes a fool's errand, basically.
Yeah. Like with Anthem, I wonder how Anthem's doing right now. They're
not all cases. Certainly, it's good to try to predict the future, especially when you're trying to decide what games you'll make, say, what budgets you're going to be putting in, and how much you can reasonably expect from it. But I find that when it comes to concepts such as what game designs will be good or bad, you very often can't tell unless you actually build it yourself to go and find the results.
Something good there.
Because trust me, I still always put as a prime example, Call of Duty World at War introducing zombies. If we were to go back in time and go to that time when zombie games were at their zenith, people would be going, oh my god, what are you thinking? That's a terrible idea. Who even thought that this was a good decision? Fast forward to today, and anytime a Call of Duty game comes out, the question always comes when it comes to any of them, oh, so what about zombies?
The Nazi zombies. They used to be called Nazi zombies.
Yeah, I know. Or even when it came to Battlefield 5.
Speaking of genres and the zenith, my brother really despised battle royale games because not a fan of the competitive stuff. So I came up with an item for a pretty unique item for a battle royale. You don't, and you can't kill other players, but you kill the monsters or zombies on the way to.
The monsters are, yeah.
Yeah, to the end point. Well, with the typical encroaching circle coming closer and closer.
Destiny 2 is trying something. They do have something that's very similar to that in terms of the teams are basically split, and that they both attempt to clear their side of
Gambit.
Whatever they
I played Gambit
faster than the other time. There's a little bit of
competitiveness.
You can pass over to the other side, competitiveness in there, but it does become almost competitive. Basically, it's competitive PvE with a light touch of PvP.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that's an area of the industry that companies haven't explored as much. It's just that whole competitive PvE aspect, and I'm kind of thinking that maybe with some of the things that Destiny 2 is doing, that other developers might look at that and say, okay, let's try something along those lines.
I'm actually kind of surprised that Destiny 2 is going to be free to play. along with
To an extent.
I'm honestly
Yeah.
not
To an
fully
extent.
surprised by it because it feels like with the position that Bungie put itself in, because they managed to buy themselves out from, or not buy, but at least separate from a big publisher and
Right.
somehow be able to do what they're doing. It feels like they were clearly betting that Destiny was going to be the game that was going to give them at least a stronghold of sorts, or at least like a footing for them to be able to make projects later. And Destiny 2 was the one they decided, yeah, this is the game that'll at least hold us over until then. But the problem with trying to do that is that it's still behind a paywall to be able to just play the game in general. So their only realistic option was to make it so that way you would basically have to play for free and buy through its microtransactions or whatever.
like with Star Wars: The Old Republic.
It's a good model, though.
Like with Star Wars: The Old
It is a good model. I think it is.
Forget that.
I'm also surprised
just
that
saying,
they're
like,
going
based
to
on
with
my
crossplay.
thoughts
They're
afterwards.
going to do crossplay for Destiny 2. That also surprises me.
I know COD Modern Warfare, the rebooted version, I know that it's also having crossplay across all
claimed
platforms.
that too, right? I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder with that model though, because I haven't played a Call of Duty in quite some time. I was a massive fan of what was original Modern Warfare. I played the absolute bananas out of Modern Warfare 1.
I did too.
Man, was that such a good game. And I kind of had a falling out with the series of Modern Warfare
What happened?
2 because I felt like Modern Warfare 2 left... Because, well, as a PC player, my perspective on this stuff is a little bit different. I felt like Modern Warfare 1, just called that.
Whoa! Sorry, there's a rain. I didn't know the rain was closing in. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going the wrong
Gotta
direction.
run.
I'm in the zone now. But yeah, keep going.
No, Modern Warfare 2 left behind some of the things I loved about Modern Warfare 1 for me was a very good hybrid of tactical shooting and careful gameplay. And the thing that I noticed in Modern Warfare 2 is they essentially, and I don't mean this to be a negative term, so don't take it that way, but they very much consoleized the experience. The maps got really small. The guns were all, generally speaking, they didn't have to control them as much, and it kind of left that whole mouse and keyboard experience behind. And I love their co-op. Their co-op mode was fantastic. But at that point in my life too, I was playing more Battlefield games and stuff, and I kind of had a falling out with the Modern Warfare series. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do with this next one. But if crossplay is a thing, and they don't separate, and everyone talks about this, if they don't separate the mouse and keyboard versus controller, I'm going to have a field day.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, that was actually a pretty unique one where someone said that their falling out was with Modern Warfare 2, because usually your answer varies between either World at War or Black Ops 1. For some it was Black Ops 2 or something along those lines. So Modern Warfare 2 being the sort of like breaking off point, that's a pretty unknown take though, actually. Certainly one I don't hear ever.
Yeah.
If you go some of the bigger YouTube channels who talk about this stuff, like I'm trying to think of off the top of my head, I can't remember his name, but they always play together. He talks about all the time, because he was a PC player too. He talks about all the time how, from a PC perspective, Modern Warfare 2 just wasn't as good of a game as Modern Warfare 1. A lot of that has to do with the laning and the weapons. But yeah, it is a different. I know it's not usually what people say.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean that in the negative. It's just that
Sure, I overshot it. Whoops.
But I think what I most appreciate you saying that is what you said, is that you're not saying it as a negative, because I get pretty frustrated when it comes to hot take culture, because very often it feels like not so much not just an attempt to be different, though it is certainly that a part of it, but rather that a person tries to feel like they're superior on it, or that they understood something that others didn't, when really it just comes to just a difference of perspective of things around it, which is something at least which was refreshing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just certainly a different one, but it's portrayed respectfully on that one. I mean, I always say go with the games that you personally like doing, and certainly just be willing to always just support the ones that you do. I think of the same, though, and I really wish that people just understand that point better, because whenever I hear people always talk about the state of games or movies or whatever, where they complain about how sequels, reboots, whatever, usually end up being the things that
and
sell the most.
adaptations, don't forget.
Okay.
Right.
Don't forget,
Usually, or things like new IPs never really selling well. Well, the problem though is that people really aren't really willing to be riskful of it. Now, I don't want to sound brazen for it because I know there's a lot of complicated factors that go into it. Economy being tight though, or just that the person in question doesn't have the money to just always go for that. And usually, what few things they can buy, they have to make sure that they get returns on. But it's still the reality of the case that if you want to see things like new IPs, not have one of the dominating forces are always sequels, then you just have to make sure you spend money on IPs. Like, for instance, when I brought up Brightburn earlier, even though I personally like the movie, even though a lot of people feel more mixed on it, even if I didn't like it, I would still tell people to go see and support it, because I want to be able to still support new ideas, even if maybe I don't feel that the idea is executed to the way that I would have personally liked it to. Because otherwise, I feel like we're just encouraging a culture to play things safe rather than take risks. Again, but that still feels a bit iffy, because taking a risk is good, but it's not good in every single scenario. So again, there's always that nuanced element of it, which is, while it can be good in many respects, it can also be bad in plenty of others. So
it can still,
it's just
it
at
can still
least
turn out to be a
general.
bad game. You can still
A dud.
You can take a risk and it could still be bad. Or right, it's generally, it's like rolling the dice, and that's why a lot of companies. Exactly, right. It's why a lot of companies, people say all the time, well, why aren't these companies taking more risks? Because the reality of the situation is everybody remembers the risks that people took that worked.
Yeah.
You have all these other games out, thousands of games out there now, right? And a lot of them were risks, and a lot of them didn't work. And when you crunch the numbers, look at Call of Duty as proof of that, right? Human nature likes... Humans are very predictable. They like what they like. They don't quite know what they don't like yet, and that's a big part of like that feedback cycle with developers, right? And that's why Call of Duty continues to, and maybe this year's going to be different, or whenever the new Modern Warfare comes out. But that's why Call of Duty continues to sell so well, because people know what they like, and buy what they like. That's why Activision has never taken a risk there. They basically throw a new coat of paint on it. They add wall running, or they take it out, which I always thought was hilarious. This year has wall running. It's a brand new feature.
Fish AI!
Right. Fish AI. We took wall running out. It's a brand new feature, right? Like,
Sorry, but fish. I could not get over the fish AI stuff. It's just like,
I remember that.
I don't really remember that, because again, my usual keep of E3 is. So can you explain that? I honestly don't understand it.
It was back in like 2013.
I'll paste it into
it was back in 2013 on Microsoft's side. Microsoft was under a bit of a rush blood with some of the initial features for the Xbox, such as you have to connect online every 24 hours, or else the Xbox won't work. That sort of thing. Anyway,
okay.
So people didn't seem to be impressed with the new Call of Duty, which is a Ghost at the time. So somebody came up with the idea of fish AI during the demonstration.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Yeah.
Fish AI, but what is that supposed to refer to? Because fish usually refers to, people usually say like when it doesn't have memory, or just in general is really stupid.
Oh,
nothing. It's basically nothing, Burger. It's nothing. It's just like, it's just the fish being more aware. That's it. It's like a dancing.
Okay.
It's a weird.
Go back to your point then, what you were saying earlier, because I think I now kind of get the picture of it. From what you were saying earlier.
I'm terribly sorry. It's just I couldn't help myself.
No, I get it. So you were saying like about risks though, and that people usually don't only remember the risks that work and such, and that's where like we went to that.
Right, and that's why sometimes the big publishers and developers do take risks. Like Apex Legends was absolutely a risk, and now everyone's pointing at Apex Legends and they say, "See, look, risks do work. This is what the gaming industry should be doing." But what they forget is that
there's all the failures that accompanied that.
Yeah,
there are a lot more failures than successes.
Yeah, you remember success, you kind of put failure behind you, or you look in the marketplace and you can say, look at all these risks at work. But for someone like Activision, reproducing, it makes perfect, absolute sense to keep reproducing nearly the same Call of Duty every year, repackaging and selling it, because it makes them millions of dollars and it keeps thousands of people employed. And that's why, and that's what the good publishers and developers are good at. So let someone else in the market take that share of innovation, and risk taking. Let the big publishers take the safe bets, because you know what? There's millions of people that like a safe bet, and sometimes And sometimes even the big publishers and developers take risks, and that's okay too. But let's not. I hate when the gaming community demonizes publishers and developers for not doing something completely off. More often than not, and I'll end the point here. More often than not, those ideas.
Yeah.
I often get that sort of sensation, like especially when it comes to cancel games. Like when it came to me personally, I was not excited for the games that they were saying because to sell me on it, I need something more than just what the I need to be told. So for me, it's just like when it comes to deciding what exactly that I'm going to personally to be getting, I need to be told more than it's a vaguely open world Star Wars game. Okay, well, I have KOTOR as my open world Star Wars game. What do you have that it doesn't? And I saw nothing from it outside of a pretty demo where someone walked for a few seconds. I need a little more.
Oh my god!
I couldn't help but think of Metal Gear Solid 5, the Phantom Pain, where a bunch of it is just Snake traveling on a horse.
Oh, I love
horse technology.
5, though.
Horse shitty technology.
That's horse technology.
And horse tentacles in Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm not making it up. I'm pretty sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I do sometimes wonder if my enjoyment. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah,
overlapping.
As a little jokey side note, I'm pretty sure that's why Rockstar had like 100 hour weeks just to added horse tentacles that can shrink in the cold.
I think that's where sometimes realism can go too far. But anyway, back to what we were saying earlier on that stuff. But yeah, that's usually for it, and especially when it comes to like when you were saying for risk, and especially when that ends up in canceled games. When for me, I was not excited for it because there was nothing really to be excited outside of its idea. And at least for me, I need more than just the idea to sell me on it.
By the way,
when I ended up finding.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to talk about E3 and one of the biggest things, Cyberpunk 2076. I was not expecting Keanu Reeves to be there and to be in the game itself as one of your handlers, I think.
Because he wasn't ever in a. I don't think Keanu ever acted in a game before, so I think this is his first for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks pretty good, though I read an article that says that there are some really weird elements in the game, along with the sluggish gunplay. And I'm gonna have to mention a really gross in-game advertisement.
The trans thing.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like.
Solid copy.
I am frustrated. I am not surprised.
Because I don't have experience, I stay quiet on that because I feel like it's not
I am frustrated.
I don't really know enough of it.
I'm frustrated about it because, like, really?
Yeah.
That sort of thing, and there are other people that know better than I can, or than any of us can.
Do you guys think though? And I saw the advertisement and I saw a ton of different
takes.
Twitter analysis, right? And I hate the fact that that's actually a thing, right? That there's Twitter analysis, that you end up jumping down the rabbit hole, and the next thing you know, you're going from thread to thread, and you're looking at people's opinions on it. The way I took that, let me tell you the way I first saw that. I was like, okay, so they're doing, it's kind of a, lack of a better term, they're doing a sarcastic take on an extremely over-commercialized view of the world.
Yeah.
That's what I thought that they were going for in that game, is that this world is so grossly over-commercialized that this is the type of advertisement that we have now. And I think she's holding like a sports drink or something.
Yeah.
Or
a sports drink.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Sports drink.
Yeah, right? And
yeah,
so,
sports drink, mix it up. I can't tell you the more explicit details because, I'm not sure.
Exactly. No, I've seen it. Yeah, I gotcha.
It's just...
And so I thought that's what they were getting at, and then I saw other people's takes on it, and they were like, well, no, it's not what they're getting at. They're just...
being edgy. Intentions are not magic. So, and I remember someone telling me intentions are not magic.
Wait, say it again?
Intentions are not magic. Someone told me that years ago. I held by it since. If they're trying to go for Saltar and somehow they missed it by
Thanks. Good looking out.
It really didn't work out too well. That I really cannot say more without making without calling myself as like a bit of an ignorant jackass. You know what I mean?
So game over.
Holy crap!
Go ahead, you guys You guys just cut out there for a second.
Yeah, holy crap!
having my back.
We survived.
Yeah, get him.
Patch
Nice.
myself up.
Yeah, I'm honestly I'm honestly surprised. Good thing I got this Phoenix kit. Holy crap!
Yeah, you guys played that well.
For commercialization, which
gotta
is
patch
what you
myself
felt
up.
was
Hang on.
getting at when they did that advertisement. I looked like you were about to go more, so that's what I was saying. Where you were
Oh
going
yeah,
with it.
Yeah.
that's what I thought. That's what I kind of thought that world was, because just from the context that we've seen so far, just the world that they've shown, it seems to be this, and I think they've confirmed this slightly, is that it seems to be this kind of dystopian, exaggerated take on the world. There's rampant commercialization everywhere. There's pretty much anything and everything can be commercialized and advertised and sold to you and installed in you, whatever the hell you want, right? And there's actually been a lot of TV shows and shit the last couple of years that have covered this, but that's the way I took it. And then I saw a lot of the debate around it, and it's just one of those fascinating things, because when I looked at it, I never took it that way, but I can see how somebody would see that and see something different. It's
Yeah,
just-
CDPR has a bit of a troubling history with like representation
They
of
do.
the yeah,
They do.
along with their notorious crunch culture, which I talked to him earlier, which I bought Witcher 3 for the Game of the Year edition for my brother, because he wanted me to get it for him. And I sure, and it's not that sure. Didn't really realize what went on behind the scenes, and when I found out about it, I felt kind of dirty about it. I don't think I told my brother that, but I think he would he would understand.
Someone's gotta take out the new kill leader.
It all depends on, and I always tell people all the time, I say, I kind of have a little bit more of a, if you guys have participated in the Discord, and
Yeah,
I have a
nuanced
little
gaming.
more of
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I have a little more of a nuanced view on crunch culture, and I think we've all talked about that a bunch of times. But I think one of the things I like to remind people is that if you genuinely don't like
Heard
something,
that.
and you think a company is doing something wrong, not spending your money on it, and essentially telling them politely, whether that's through forums or through even email,
Social
right?
media
Someone
or
in our-
whatever.
Right, whether it's social media. Say, I'm not buying the game because of this. I wouldn't berate them for it, but not buying something because you don't believe in what the company is doing is way more effective than any other
Yeah.
form.
Yeah, and what happened?
And that's how you feel.
yeah.
That's exactly what you should do. And I'm glad to hear you saying, I'm not going to support this because of this, instead of saying
Yeah.
what a lot of people say is, which is, I'm just going to go buy it anyway, but screw CD Projekt
We're
Red
already
anyway,
inside this
because
next
that's
ring.
just, it's kind of hypocritical.
That's a good point. I was actually kind of angry because it's just like, really, dude? I was like, really?
I mean, as far as it, because yeah, I'm not really for that though, because that's where it's that same dilemma. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game I really love though, and I put definitely more than my share of hours in. But yeah, it's that thing where Rockstar just blew
Half
the
the
lid,
squads
because by that
remain.
point I had already bought the game anyway. Where
Right.
they did the 100 hours of work weeks, and it just definitely now gave me that sort of paying feeling, which is where I liked the game and what they did. I loved so much of it. But I dislike that it took basically really stretching people's healths just to be able to make it.
Yeah, I was
And
really
even from some
I was really
standpoint,
devastated about the
like when
reports with
Apex,
Apex Legends. The developers have vowed not to resort to crunch, and so has Nintendo. If you've heard the reports.
Yeah, they mentioned
Yeah.
something too, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
and
trying to do that.
and
So they
Bio
said
has
per season
yeah.
as opposed to per month stuff, and I'm like, I'm for that, because at least it gives me the best balance, at least currently, unless some other crazy new model comes in the future. Here's what it is, and here's
Faking 'em out with a
for how
decoy.
it's finding the best balance between getting this content versus what lets the developers be able to keep their sanity, basically, as well as also making sure that they stay healthy. and
I
all
was
that.
really devastated anyway when I caught wind of the reports of what happened with Bio behind the scenes with Anthem. Though
Anthem, yeah.
Though the report itself has exaggerated some details, if I remember right. Is that right?
I mean, this is the thing. I'll just let's make a small note here in the middle of this discussion. The
Yeah.
thing you have to remember about a lot of, especially software development and game development, is that you could have a group of people within the company that crunch, right? They put in 60 to 100 hours a week for a period of time. You could have developers in the next room or the next cube over Those guys are only doing 40 to 50 hours a week. They do something different, right? It's not this. It's very niche. You have to understand that it's not the same result. I've got a close friend that's in the industry, and he works mostly on the actual streets, like environment and models, cars and stuff like that. And he'll tell you, he's like, crunch for us isn't real bad. He's like, I've done it for 60-hour weeks, and I know guys who do more than that.
Yeah.
But for me, because of my role, I don't crunch as much as other people. I always caution people with don't take this peanut butter spread of this is how the industry is.
Yeah.
Because what we oftentimes see reported in media is a very specific circumstance of it. So I'll just end that there.
Yeah, I was really devastated about what happened with Bioware, but since I remember that they said that they will do their best to improve their work culture, which I am quite behind. Because
the thing that has done more for the industry is just the reporting of it, and this whole talk of developing a game union and unionization stuff, and I'm going to steal a word from Ask a Game Dev here, is that it's kind of a red herring. We can solve media, game developers, the companies. Crunch can be solved without going with what I'll call the nuclear option, which is everyone needs to be a union, we all have to be unionized, and we're all going to have our roles divvied up, and we're just going to be unionized employees.
Yeah, though, I support the idea. I really support the idea of unionization, just to let that clear out, because
that's fair.
When I started, initially when all that was coming in, especially with Red Dead Redemption 2 bringing that discussion, I initially was like, unionization, that's always there. But then when I read like you and Ask the Game Dev's like thoughts on it though, where you start to say it's a bit more complicated than that, because the professions I always saw unions were ones like you and Ask the Game Dev talk about. Typically, or pretty much only, ones that are non-transferable skills. Acting is something that's only in really one skill, also for several other jobs.
So,
in the games industry, people have so many different skills that they can transfer across projects, and having a union can easily hamper that.
So you need to come up with the unique type of
so it's more
unions.
of a band-aid. I learned it was more of a band-aid solution rather than something that actually would do anything meaningful.
Yeah. So you have to come up with a unique type of unions that would adapt to different skill sets. Is that right?
Well, you could. There's nothing stopping a union being created, except for the people who could create it. And that's kind of that's the scenario that a game union finds itself in. Is that for the union to exist, it has to be backed by people, right? A union's not going to come up without the people who could form the union going about doing it. And also,
not to mention the money to throw around to support said union.
Yeah, and unions have a bit of turbulent history in the United States. And I'm Chub Master.
They do in the U.S.
So that's where it's when those points when now I'm not so immediately sure of like when people suggest that it'll be. And it was something that is like even what I mentioned on your post though is that because we're still in a state that unlike other entertainment mediums like the movie industry, the music industry, or anything else, gaming medium still seems to not really understand its own industry. They are often just as ignorant of it as I am, really. I mean, even though I've learned more, even though like maybe some people would maybe argue I know maybe just a little bit more than average, I really wouldn't put any knowledge I have on a pedestal. I'm still super ignorant of what it is, and there's still way too before I can really say I'm knowledgeable.
The games industry itself too is still what we would consider in the U.S. a young industry. So they struggle with
growing pains. Yeah,
growing pains, literally. Right, exactly. That a young industry struggles with. Because the game industry used to be something that was driven out of people's garages and basements, and eventually
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the same thing. It started out in garages, basements, you name it.
I still remember what even Todd Howard said, like, for E3 presentations for that. Like, before, even in the 90s, there was, like, really none of that E3 business. There was, like, I think it was called CES in Vegas or something like that, and they weren't even in the main building. They were, like, in a tent next to the porn, basically.
Yeah, they were like, look at the shit that I built. Oh, that's cool, right? It was like going to a Corvette show. It's just everyone's just staring at each other's Corvettes, right? Because they didn't... blown up, and it has the attributes of an industry that has been. And that's what you see a lot of this crunch culture and this chaos and turmoil.
It's going to pain, Sam. I always keep on reading tweets like, "Oh, the industry is falling apart."
Right, and that's, even if you're big on unions, and it's totally okay with you if you are, that is just such an unbelievably false statement, and it really frustrates me when people like, whether it be a reporter like Jason Schreier or someone like Sterling puts that out there, because it is a 100% false statement. The industry is nowhere near falling apart.
Like Luke would say in The Last Jedi, amazing. Everywhere what you said is wrong.
Every word you just said was wrong. Or pretty much like that.
Yeah, it's not falling apart. What it has within it is it has pockets of probably called
growing
chaos,
pains,
right?
It feels like a lot of people
chaos is a ladder.
Gaming companies as
chaos
sort of
is a
like
ladder.
under one kind of leadership, and maybe everyone is just operating.
Hey everyone,
by the same
I didn't
kind
see
of
you there for a
rules.
sec. How you doing?
Even just cursory research into other studios of the industry often demonstrates differences in how they view work, as well as also their views on crunch and many other very nuanced areas where they switch apart on it. So their work ethics can often be something that's even way different from each other. Some harsher, some more banal than others. It's just really dependent. But yeah, I think when it comes to the whole like it's falling apart thing, really this is just something that I feel is something that goes more into tabloid, into more of the tabloid journalism area, which is something unfortunately on YouTube for games journalism seems to be the only thing that exists right now. For things like that, because they just always want to make you think that their solutions are there, because very often the things that they talk about they end up not knowing, so they end up thinking it's way bigger than it is, so that it lands more credence to them.
It's this whole application, and the application of what I see games media do all the time is games media applies their ecosystem or their labor view to video to basically software development.
Yeah.
And and I'm not again, none of this is being against unions. It's just talking about how you can't take one labor pool and look at the way it works and then take that and apply it to another labor pool and be like, see, we unionized, you could do it too. Your jobs are completely different. You have different ecosystems, you have different management structures, you have different jobs, you have different roles.
Right.
It's like so much of that is not fairly reported on. And with that, I'm going to grab another beer and I'll be right back.
Right.
Oh yeah, sure, you're good.
Yeah, and speaking of the industry, my dad used to my dad works is a software developer, relies on contracts. When I talk about
I didn't know your dad was a software developer.
Yeah. Though, and he said that the gaming industry is like it's very cutthroat and like sweat has like pretty sweatshop business, that sort of thing. I'll read it later. Oh, nice!
Damn, this shotgun's actually way better than I gave it credit for.
At least I helped. That was a lucky throw. Whoa!
Oh, I got punched off the building. Either punched off or like shot off the building. Like, oh my god.
Are you gonna record that?
Definitely. But I don't know what the hell just happened.
It's something, that's for sure.
I had gameplay recorded. Oh my god, I have no idea what just happened.
The chat box should be popping up, but I'm seeing the chat, but so aside from while GameOverThirty is away from to get a drink, what games are you looking forward to from E3? Well, aside from Star Wars.
All right, I'm back.
Definitely, I would say the Square Enix's Avengers game. I actually think, while I'm still iffy specifically on Captain America's design, I still like at least what I saw of it, and I would definitely be interested to see as to how exactly that pans out.
Yeah.
So I would say that one's what I'm looking forward to. Fallen Order is, I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan. It's kind of a given. I would have been looking forward to that because I'm curious to see what Respawn has to offer because they've been on a good streak lately. Definitely Watch Dogs Legion was definitely a pretty pleasant surprise that is there.
Yeah,
While
same.
Sea of Solitude, at least I don't know if it was there. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to be pre-ordering it probably like next weekend or something because when I get paid next week, because it's definitely just something I'm really looking forward to. From there, and that's just really only right off the top of my head because I haven't really done so. Cyberpunk 2077 never personally interests me. I get dystopian futures and why a lot of people often end up liking it, but I find that I'm kind of all over the place when it interests me. Like, I'm not really super into like Apocalyptic Wasteland stuff, but Fallout has my interest for reasons that still feel inexplicable. So things like that, and I just find that Cyberpunk really isn't
speaking of Cyberpunk,
basically.
There's a reason why I really do like BioWare because they do their best to fix their mistakes. If you remember in Andromeda, where they portrayed Haley Abrams, the trans woman, they had her be read too casual with her dead name, and people pointed that out, and BioWare changed that, so you have to do the favor for her by getting her fiance out of cryo, and then she'll tell you about herself. That's along with making Zhao, the Angaran companion, available for male characters as well as female characters.
Right.
I like.
So yeah, that's always things I'm looking forward to with. And definitely, I still remember from E3 a lot of people who were trying to throw shade at Anthem, saying because it wasn't really out on E3, so probably has to, as a lot of these things often get eye-rollingly done, like, oh, they're probably embarrassed as to what they probably have.
Or they're still abandoning it. They're still even though regardless if they told their shareholders that they're not, which you...
Yeah,
I always think when it comes to games that people claim are dead is something that Ben Walk said about Battlefront 2, which is, yeah, people have been saying our game's been dead since launch, and look where we still are.
Yeah, it's got to...
Let me ask you guys...
I mean, has Anthem definitely decreased in its numbers? Yeah, sure, but so has every game that went through a launch like what it did.
And Doctor Who's and the latest season of Doctor Who, the one with Jodie Whittaker. I always get her name wrong. The 13th Doctor.
For me, that's what I'm always for it, because it seems to me like I go by what investors did. They even said, yes, it undersold, but we're still dedicated to it. We'll still be improving it. So for me, and because I even said, like, for what is one of the things I love about live service games, is that even if it doesn't start out in the best of states, if you like the core, it can absolutely be something that can transform. No Man's Sky did it, Battlefront 2 has done it, and Anthem looks like it's going to be shaping up to do it. Really, any of them do, and even MMOs for that matter have. I mean, I still remember, like, when I went through early reporting of Star Wars: The Old Republic, because I didn't have a PC, but I was interested and wanted to see how it was shaping.
I was there. I was there. I've played that game since day one, and only a few years ago did I finally retire. So I went through the whole thing.
Yeah, I still need to catch up on the latest stuff.
And I remember it that it was not really a success. People thought that the story was good on it, but still the sentiment was largely that it felt disappointing that it wasn't a KOTOR 3 like they wanted. It was more closer to a pseudo-sequel rather than anything. And so from that, I mean, I couldn't really blame anyone. I can understand why exactly that it wasn't their fancy, and that when it came out, it actually wasn't even the biggest success. It was sort of like Man of Steel in that same game, where it made money, but it didn't make the sort of money that the studio, Warner Brothers for Man of Steel and BioWare/EA for The Old Republic, where it didn't make the money they were hoping it would, but then through some different business model, changing some of their stuff, they managed to make it to where it became a really big MMO.
It's a profitable business. Right.
Oh shit.
People were asking. Nice shooting. Yeah, people were. You should just abandon this, right? Or this game is dead. I quit. And then those.
The only way that's good if the servers are down, like with City of Heroes, I think City of Heroes, Champions Online. I don't know.
Was City of Heroes the one that was the company claims it was profitable, but they ended up shutting it down anyway?
I think so.
Or was that the other one, the other superhero game?
I honestly don't know. Sorry.
I don't remember. But
It was one of
anyway,
them.
yeah, it's just usually for things like that because I really dislike it. I mean, that's why for me on the whole reporting of games has gone so bad that on YouTube there's not a single games journalist that I follow. I just instead go based on what the official company of this or that game that I'm interested in says, and often on commentators from devs like you.
Someone's commenting on
those ones.
Someone's just commenting on the screen. I know the big part of the big AAA games such as No Man's Sky is they get overhyped, and by the time it catches up to the hype, the audience have moved on. Same with Anthem. That's what they want to point out. Do you agree
I
with
wouldn't
that?
say the audience moved on, considering when No Man's Sky did its whole recreation and then they ended up doing their big changes, it became super viral and even managed to get quite popularity from that. So I don't
people
honestly
have
understand
no,
how people
and
meet
I remember,
die
and I
out
remember
because-
people have noted how things turned around at No Man's Sky. I want to point that out. I don't know why I stopped playing No Man's Sky. Well, more it's because one of my external hard drives stopped working on the Xbox. I couldn't figure out why.
Oh, sorry.
And
I mean, history is always littered with examples of people thinking that people's interest from it moved on, when no, it's only moved on for a bit, but then with only one big push of popularity, it gets in.
Yeah.
I mean, Battlefront 2 was that same version. When it released, even though it only did so-so in sales, the sales seemed conflated, but for argument's sake, I'm going with the lowest estimate, which was apparently 7 million copies.
Yeah.
And even despite all
Yeah, I
of
think
that,
that's
though...
what they said. Yep.
I want to point out something. I want to point out something. Apex Legends. Sorry. Apex Legends is a spin-off of just want to point out that Apex Legends is a spin-off of the Titanfall series, and because of this game, Titanfall 2 has seen a resurgence. Don't forget that.
I love
We'll win this
Titanfall
thing
2. We
together.
won't have to get into it because we're going to go down a rabbit hole if we do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is for that.
Titanfall.
is that
Yeah, like
no game is at the end of the day going to be something that fades out of existence. I mean,
like
gamers only are interested really in stuff that's constantly updating,
yeah.
and when your
I
game
really am.
is
Yeah,
always
really,
doing
yeah.
updates,
Really am
you
sorry
get
for
better.
really sorry for interrupting. It's just
Your champion.
yeah. Anyway, here's something that really made me laugh my ass off. You really want to play Sims 4, right? Shadowhawk and GameOverThirty. You played Sims 4, right?
I don't
have
play Sims
never
because I don't own
played
a PC.
It's on the console, by the way. It's on.
Hilarious 'cause
Yeah,
Go ahead.
there's this really hilarious holiday in the season's expansion called Neighborhood Brawl.
Jets, we're dropping
It's
off.
exactly what he meant. What do you think? And you could just like walk up to anyone, greet them, and then go into the party with them. It's hilarious when they hug it out afterwards, and they get like a positive relationship value out of it. You can even do it with family members and friends, at least as long as it's a similar age. It's like
If it's on Xbox, then I
it's
definitely
the
have to try it.
goofiest shit.
it's like
But I also,
it's-
to people in the chat though, which was something that I wanted GameOverThirty to sort of talk about, which was especially in relation to No Man's Sky and Anthem, which was, I remember on your Twitter you said like a while ago, your comments about community engagement and things like community managers often like, I can't exactly remember your exact words, but sort of like you feel that it's overrated to the extent that people try to act like it's effectiveness and a community manager, whoever, just constantly getting information. I can't speak for everyone, but if I were to take a guess as to why exactly for a lot of people that matters, I think it's more so because people just want to know, at least have a person there who tells them that everything's okay or something along those lines. At least that's the
Okay.
means I get.
Avion
Like,
T24
like
said.
everything's- not to be dramatic. I don't want to sound dramatic. Over
No,
it.
no,
Sort of
no,
Like
I-
that
I-
everything's
you're
fine.
right, though.
Yeah,
You're right, though.
things like that.
That is why so many, like, if you just take a stroll through the Anthem community, besides it being relatively
Toxic as
for the
hell. I don't even
right?
Reddit. Oh
I
my
don't
god,
know.
Reddit. So, a bit off topic, Avion224 said, holiday starts, greet next door, punch them in the face, become friends. I always let my ass off at that holiday. It's like, someone from Polygon even mentioned that it's the funniest holiday ever. Because you were expecting to be cool with your Saints, but instead, the Saints will decide to be cool to you as a bit of a karmic backlash.
The Sims
So
is
you were
something I
mentioning
have
about,
never dealt in, but go ahead.
You were saying about for Anthem, you were saying like
Well,
like trying to
this
surface its forum post or whatever. And again, we're talking about community management.
Reddit.
Like,
Oh my god. Have you been to Reddit?
I don't play
Yeah,
to.
but that's
Anyway,
where- no,
like
I
GameOverThirty, I'm
used to
finished
be-
on this.
I used to be, so I have a ton. And I used to
Exactly,
kind of
Evian.
crash course,
Reddit equals a toxic fence. Like, exactly. Fucking
Yeah,
exactly.
Wait, Connor,
Right,
I'm saying...
it's very toxic. And I used to be a moderator of r/games, right? So
Oh.
I well versed with it, with what kind of stuff that we couldn't even allow. We had to remove because people are so unbelievably vengeful in the larger gaming community.
Why?
That
It just boggles
feel
my
like
mind.
their lives have been. I know, and they feel like their lives have been affected, and that's why I kind of have this. I kind of have a very negative. And I'll admit, I admit, I have a very negative view of community engagement because I look at something like No Man's Sky, and I don't agree with the people who say that the situations are terrible. Sean Murray completely oversold that game, and I do blame that on him. But
Yeah.
what he found was, and when he talked about this in GDP, was like, there's
I saw
only
that.
so
Wait,
much, right?
Go look at it.
Yeah. He talked about there's really only so much the community engagement could do, and what they ended up doing was they stopped they stopped communicating with people like a Reddit because there was nothing that came, like there was literally no good that could come out of it. And if you guys were around, you were playing No Man's Sky at the time, and I actually did have a copy, and I used to go back to their Reddit and follow it. They were just begging and pleading and trashing the developers for attention. And Sean Murray and his team said, we're going to read the comments, but we're not going to say a damn thing.
Yeah.
There's no good.
And Bioware's taking a similar approach. Bioware's taking a similar approach.
Yes.
Ever since, like,
They
how
are.
Mass Effect 3, how Mass Effect 3 originally ended, they just, like, we're gonna keep science because fuck you all for being such toxic dipshits.
And they're taking the same approach with Anthem. And here's the thing is, I'm not against community engagement. In fact, when we had that week-long discussion on our Discord about community engagement, I came away with that with a good view of why, in some circumstances, community engagement does work.
Oh, shadowhawk, sorry, I had to steal your shotgun.
You're good.
The whole
And other stuff. I really am sorry, but it's an emergency.
Yeah, go ahead. Take it. You were saying you walked away with you said like a view of why you can understand it, of why people
I can
want
understand
it.
why people why they want it, but these games that basically fail at launch, and I'll call it fail, even though I don't actually believe in the term failing. But
Yeah, it's a better way to describe it. You couldn't
it's just a way to describe
undersold.
it, right?
Didn't do well.
Yeah.
I say
Right.
it didn't do well at launch. I wouldn't say.
It didn't do well.
Yeah. Sorry.
So anyway, you were saying like you understand that, but and there's the
I
but
understand it,
aspect
but-
to this.
The whole but aspect to it is that the community. We were talking about this earlier. You don't know what they want until you do. Right? And it's almost like the Nintendo and Apple version of the product.
Oh fuck! Bad idea to do an execution.
Wreck 'em.
Yes. Sorry, it's just like
Nice.
that was probably a bad idea to do an execution. To be honest.
Well, then,
As far as
I'll
that,
keep
that's
the
kind of
point
been
short.
people in communities. They honestly don't know what they want until it actually happens.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And
I
that's
always
why I
say,
like what No Man's Sky did.
I say, Phantoms are a mistake, and for good reason. Yeah, I advocate to some pretty bad people. I have some experiences with some. I remember a former friend of mine who like years ago, like he threatened to stab the developers of Dead Space in throat because he read some outrageous report that Dead Space 3 needs to sold 5 million or more copies or something. I don't know. Okay, so, same person asked, what do you guys think about Fortnite?
I don't have much
So
feelings on it. People love it, and I think if they
Yeah,
love
same.
it, that's fine for them.
I mostly play Fortnite for like stuff like the adventure stuff, you know, with back last year and this year with Endgame. I was just here for the adventure stuff, to be honest. And John Wick, because John Wick is kind of funny because Fortnite has their own version of John Wick, and then suddenly John Wick for real. It's like
John Wick has hit that stratosphere of pop culture now, right? I mean, John Wick is everywhere now, even for people that don't like the movies. Like, yeah, John Wick, I know who that is.
Anyway,
that's actually
I wanted to-
surprising.
for GameOverThirty because we got sidetracked though.
Yeah.
But you were saying as to well, you were about to. It sounded like you were about to say something after like people don't know what they want though. and that there's about to be maybe more to
Well,
it.
actually, you know what? I'm going to use that to segue into the answer to Fortnite. So Fortnite is a prime example of nobody knowing what they want until they play it. And no amount of feedback and no amount of community engagement would have created Fortnite. Fortnite was a product of a company saying, we need to rebuild. We launched a game, it was a soft launch of Fortnite. We need to rebuild a game in a way that we think will bring people in. So they kind of, they combined the Battle Royale and the buildings thing. And it's not, if community engagement was how games were built, Fortnite would not really be a thing, because people would just keep regurgitating all the same stuff that they keep regurgitating from other games, right? It's a Call of Duty effect. Nobody knows what else they want until they play Call of Duty, and then it's like, oh, I didn't know I wanted this other game. So, as a segue into that, I
Whoop,
like
there you
Fortnite
go.
as a,
Sorry, I just saw like Shadowhawk just like flying down for a second. It's just a funny game.
I got off course.
Fortnite
Anyway,
is an example of a game that was the right decision by luck, honestly. And a lot of the biggest developers, a lot of the developers will tell you that is as much skill as it is luck. Fortnite is a very large section. The thing about Fortnite too is that it's replicating model that people should not take the time to try to.
Well, I just got punched by a robot, by the way.
Blatantly imitate, because Fortnite is going to hold that community tight. It's like the WoW effect. Remember when all the MMOs were coming up?
Yeah.
If
well,
the
I was
developer
too young
wants
to experience all of that, FYI.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm only 22. That was probably
sure.
I played RuneScape when I was a kid.
Well, it's the WoW effect.
Yeah.
Fortnite is great. It should continue to be Fortnite. They should continue to iterate on Fortnite. But companies that want to enter the space have to enter the space with something different. And
Like with my idea of like a PvE version of Battle Royale.
Sure, right, exactly. Yeah, right.
It was. I also came with like an idea of a 3D, like not like 3D glasses, but like 3D up and down, left and right, that sort of thing. XYZ version of a battle royale where you fly in like ships and.
Oh yeah. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, what do you think of that one?
So yeah, I can now see more of what you mean from community, from stuff like that, because, I mean, I've always found that it's always at least good that the community managers there who can always assure, like, whether something is going to be done or what is coming in the future or whatever. So usually I can like in that respect, but I can see what you mean there, and that's why I haven't really had any issue with like the guys at BioWare just keeping their heads down and just gonna say where they only poke their heads up to say, "Hey guys, you release something new," and then just going from there.
Yeah, I remember.
At this point,
I remember seeing like Forbes articles like being so upset with what was going on with Anthem's like patience.
If there's only one thing that really gets under my skin the most when it comes to when I read forums, though, like especially when it comes to games that have maybe messy launches, is always the sentiment that somehow the developers like of today don't really care about their stuff, whereas the developers of the generation prior or the generations
back in the old days, I don't have a cane.
Like, I remember Ackman when I used to follow him, and I've unfollowed because I just feel that a lot of his stuff is just more of ignorant, though, from it. And especially whenever he talks about Halo 2 because of the behind-the-scenes stuff that BioWare did, and tries to act like somehow BioWare are like one of the few companies who ever personally felt regret because their launches were maybe so-so, or because their games were, like in Halo 2's when it first came out, had more of a mixed reception than people remember. And them saying like, yeah, we did things and some of it didn't work out the way we wanted it to, blah, 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 etc., things that are sad, and like for saying like, oh yeah, like stuff like this reminds me.
I remember when people were so worked up over the animations for Mass Effect Andromeda.
I remember of like, oh my god, so sorry for this though.
Yeah, do you remember how
sorry because they made something that didn't go quite right.
Hey, do you remember
instead of being an adult and just being like, here's what I don't like, you're instead acting like a child over it.
Yeah, do you remember how many people were so worked up over over the animations for Mass Effect Andromeda? Do you remember that?
I mean, yes.
I mean, I could say from it, I remembered it, and even if I was initially on the track, I'm like, yeah, how the hell then? But even when eventually, because I came to Andromeda about like a year after it came out, after I played the first 3, and it always shocked me, like in Mass Effect's case, the outrage it drew. Like, even when I saw the original ending for Mass Effect 3, and I went, wait, this was the thing I heard so much outrage about in high school, or I think I was middle school, I can't.
Yeah.
No, middle school, actually. All that, and I'm just like, this was the thing that drew so much outrage to where even someone who wasn't in the sphere playing those games was hearing about, because I felt this is quite sad.
That sounds like Billy Bob's case. Come to think about it. Anyway.
It's one of those things in retrospect that has probably aged better with time, especially when they mix the ending in terms of a story ending, if you just want to look at it narratively, it's a bad narrative ending to a game. But BioWare did what they could to make it a little bit more.
I like the extended cut. I really like. I really like the
extended cut does.
I really don't mind the idea. Just to let that out, I really don't mind the idea. How it was done originally made me go, what?
It wasn't really. I'm not one to argue that even when going through someone who didn't wasn't around at its height. I still.
I am so used to playing Pathfinder.
Best ending for that. I feel as far as game ending goes, it wasn't for me on the edge of, like, say, Metal Gear Solid 4 with ending, or Halo 3 for the original trilogy. But for me, it was far from some super terrible ending, and felt something that was pretty good for what it was.
I really don't mind the idea.
I also liked most of all, even if it was a bit so-so, was the nuance of this. In so many of the RPGs I play, there's usually always the super good, I think it goes way back to the ending, and then there's that everything has went wrong because of you ending. Whereas this one for me felt like something more of a happy balance, where now it was more of a
ambiguous. It
always have some sort of good and bad consequences to it.
Like
destroy the Reapers, but it turns out though that business will probably resume as usual from that. Then there's Control, which is Shepard can sacrifice her body to control the Reapers, but that can also, in my opinion, which was, I always considered that the worst one, because
they all had positive and negative connotations to them. It wasn't, nothing was perfect.
Yeah,
that's what I don't.
That's why I don't mind the idea.
Even New Vegas for me held that to some extent, though not quite as much for that, because I like when it feels. I mean, I don't like to use realism in this though, because I feel like realism is a thing that people use super selectively on what they like or dislike. But I say like it feels more believable as far as that my actions should not have only super positive or super negative, but that more nuance. Your thing can have some people who get good, but it can also have maybe consequences you didn't think about.
So Shadowhawk and I went with NCR because we believe in a more like democracy and that kind of stuff, in spite of all its flaws. I can also see the upsides for, like, say, independent New Vegas and Mr. House,
whether it's House or Yes Man, for things like that.
But for the Legion, it's like that was the villain path. That's the fucking villain path.
That's Obsidian really dropped the ball with the Legion, because it felt like the game was going out of its way for you not to side with them.
Yeah,
I'm not even talking about just from a morality standpoint, but I mean everyone in the game hates the Legion except like Raoul and I guess Lily. So everyone hates the Legion. The Legion has no allies with anyone in the Wasteland. The Omertas don't count because their stance is the same regardless of what you do. And if you, even when I did, where I would just walk into the fort and kill everyone, including Caesar, no repercussions come from that, aside from some assassins who kind of here and there come over.
The Legion calls for your head. Ready yourself for combat. Every single time.
Like that. But
it's like a bit of a. If you heard of like Al Chesby's, he gets that every time he tries to do a mod playthrough. It's like every time.
Which again is something I don't like though. I like the Legion from a lore standpoint, but it's just that where they fit as a gameplay one, it's very poor though, because again, there's no reason the game, despite giving you this option, it goes out of its way for you to not act on that option. So it's kind of like why give it.
Right. You obviously don't want me to, because if I do, then this is going to happen. The game experience is going to be
a bit like how people felt about the Enclave in Fallout 3.
Like if I side with the Legion, NCR is hostile to me just from the get-go, because you have to antagonize the NCR in order to get any good Legion experience, or at least enough to really see any sort of significant rewards. So therefore, from that, it means NCR is hostile to me. So if I go to Camp McCarran, or if I go to Prim, or if I go to any of the NCR bases, they're just going to shoot me on sight because I'm allied with their enemy. So there's that. The military police harass me on the strip, and then basically so far everyone goes and say they hate me. Oh, and also most of the companions that you want to do and also have their quests done so that they can affect the ending, they hate the Legion. So if you side with them, you can't see any of their endings. So it's just a case of, so why give me this option if you're going out of your way for me not to act on it? Then just don't give it to me.
100% achieving completion.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations too where developers, and I'm sure game developers would argue me about this, but I think it's one of those things where because there's an expectation that the game allows you to do so, developers feel that they're in a situation where they're supposed to do so, but it kind of mucks with the game, so they end up basically making everyone hate you to make it less of a positive choice, because it...
The only upside to a Legion playthrough are those damn lucky sunglasses.
Watch out for the new
right,
friend.
or some super rare item that exists behind the firewall of everyone hating you, right? And then you end up not picking it anyway, because who wants to put up with that, for the most part?
Here. Level 1.
Well,
So for me, it's just...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
no,
I
it's
was
just
gonna say,
things like that, though, because even though I love Fallout New Vegas, I dislike
Yeah.
how it feels sort of like when people talk about The Dark Knight, where the fanboys of it act like it's this completely perfect movie without any real substantial flaws to it, when I'm like, I love it, but... Oh, no, there are huge flaws in it that would easily bring it down for me, even in some respects. But it's something I can still enjoy well. I love New Vegas all the same, but I do feel that it brings down that experience, especially when it feels insulting to give me a choice, but doesn't let me act on it.
Yeah, how do you feel about how Mass Effect, at least the trilogy, approaches like the morality system? I really like how they do it. Sorry for changing stuff.
You know what the thing about Mass Effect is, though? Mass Effect was always... Because they had to whatever the enemy was, so you were either lawful good or essentially
chaotic neutral.
Chaotic evil.
Chaotic neutral.
Right, because you couldn't be bad. You couldn't be like, I'm siding with the Reapers. And that's okay, because the developer had an image of what they wanted to happen in the game, and that's totally 100% fine. That's their game. They could do that. But like the way they handled it, I always thought was pretty good, but I kind of feel like some people gave them strikes for you not being able to like kill everything around you, and that was never the intention of the game. So I always give BioWare a pass on how they handled Shepard's morality. You're either a good or good asshole.
I mean, it feels more appropriate for that, in that at least for the sort of tone and kind of game they were going for. So at least I don't really mind it in that regard.
Yeah.
But at least again, it's sort of as you say, I can see why that would bug some people. Because when I always say as to why you like or dislike a game, I always say don't focus on whether what your reason will be to convince me. Just go based on what it means for you. If you dislike a certain game that's popular because of these reasons, don't be concerned as to whether or not your reasons will convince me or some other person. Just focus on why you didn't like it. And especially because... And this is something I also hear a lot that I also dislike, which is this, I call it a straight myth because it's just factually untrue, which is that game developers don't like criticism, when I just go, no, they do. But the problem is that, especially with gaming pundits like Sterling, Yong Yan, all these others, they think that somehow any criticism is good, when in reality only specific types of them are. That's why whenever I try to give feedback, like say whenever they do those things on the public pages, like the official BioWare page or Fallout or whatever, where they ask like, okay, so what's feedback though? What do you like? What you don't like? And I keep it to, here's what I like and why, here's what I don't like and why. But also, and I feel like this is the thing that a lot of the pundits seem to really dislike, none of this hyperbolic shit. None of this whole, like, this is the worst game I've ever played. No, you told me that last year, you told me that this year, you'll tell me that about another game next year.
I was so frustrated with
it's not the worst.
I remember being so frustrated as I played more.
Don't tell me that somehow that this is like some objectively bad thing. Just say, here's why I didn't like it, and just simply stick with that.
Right.
But best of all, and I think what Ask a Game Dev said on this, do not, and I cannot stress enough, do not propose solutions. You have no idea if your solution will even be good, because all solutions always sound good until you actually put them in practice, and always because you don't know what they're constraining under. And the professionals you're dealing with, regardless of what their things are, they will probably come up with better solutions than you can. I feel like a thing that people often think of is that professional means you somehow make no flaws, or that you somehow can't do this or that bad thing. Professional just means you're less likely to do those. Granted, much less likely.
And keeping a cool head, right? And keeping a bit of a cool head. And keeping a bit of a
cool head, yes. Because speak to them as if they were your friends, not your enemies. Just say what you don't like, though, but also be super respectful.
Copy that.
Isn't that a huge part of it, though? It's that a lot of these, when you go to like something, again, a terrible example, right? Being the Anthem, the Anthem subreddit. Nobody talks in there as if the developers are human beings. They talk to them like they're soulless entities that just exist basically.
Oh, Shadowhawk,
make money.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and
yeah,
I know developers personally, and it's absolutely. I had a good friend of mine who's a developer, and he will tell you, he's like, it is unbelievably trying on your psyche when you want to make something better, but you go to the forums and essentially everybody hates you, and it's super toxic, and it drives developers out of the communities. They don't want to be a part of it, because none of these people put a game together because they want you to have a miserable time. A lot of people had either they had expense problems, they had project scheduling problems, maybe
management problems even.
Right, yeah. With the Anthem's case, there was obviously a leadership and decision-making problem at the company, but none of the developers, who unfortunately, leadership usually kind of asks to interact with the communities. None of the developers really did anything wrong. What happened was they just didn't get a good. They didn't get
vision.
a good feel for what they wanted their game to be.
Yeah, they have a bit of an unclear vision. It happened with
right, and then you can see that with a lot of games. It's a very typical problem in project management is games without a clear vision. It happens, honestly, and this is unfortunate, it happens all the time in project management. Unclear vision. I don't know what I want.
That's honestly the biggest
thing.
Code. If there was any one cause that killed Star Wars Visceral's game, it was that uncertainty of vision. Anytime I creative leads, they were so uncertain as to what they wanted it to be outside of its really broad scope.
Jim Sterling's take on Visceral games is completely and utterly wrong, and I tell that to everybody.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those dumb people that wades into his YouTube and Twitter posts, and I post things, and then of course I get eviscerated for it. But his take on Visceral games is completely and utterly 100% inaccurate.
I remember him sourcing a locked thread for DRM. I remember him citing a locked thread with DRM. It's like, are you serious?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I saw from that. That's why I become so puzzled when people try to suggest to me that Visceral's game would have been absolutely amazing if they put more money behind it. But I go, where's your evidence? The main people who were in charge of making it had no idea or couldn't agree on what that vision entailed. Outside of the very broad, you can explore the Star Wars galaxy, and even still, it wasn't unclear whether that was as a bounty hunter, a smuggler, just a normal person. There was none of that.
Yeah,
so
there was a clear vision for the most part in the original trilogy.
What that was.
There was
with technical issues, and even when the private screenings, though, where they would go and show the main heads at EA their game, and they admitted it was not fun. So that's why, especially from those games that we used to lack a vision, it goes down to it. How can you actually convince me sincerely that this would have been an amazing game at launch? Because the history of it shows the opposite. That at best, if they had released the game, it would have came across as a disappointment at the very best.
Yeah, that story about Visceral, man, is probably in the last few years, probably one of the most misunderstood stories that the gaming pundits picked up.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating to see people still bring that up, because and to Jason Schreier's credit, he actually did try to correct the record on that. He did kind of, after their initial reporting, he did put out a statement that my evidence kind of says that this developer in this game was really floundering in project management. So, but other people like Sterling and the Young, they keep repeating.
Yeah, because they want their clicks. They want the money.
Again.
And especially on that, what really confused me on there, especially because I remembered seeing all those the memes on sites that was saying like, oh my god, EA so far has only released in 6 years like a handful of games. When I was thinking to myself, wait, but you guys were complaining. I still remember when Battlefront 2 was announced only 6 months after Battlefront 2015's release. Oh my god, they're just going to keep releasing games though and not even really have care for it. So I kind of went like, so wait, which is it, guys? Either it's bad that they keep releasing games on a yearly basis, or it's bad that they hardly release them. Because, again, I've played a good deal of them. I'm not going to proclaim that I played all or most of them, but as far as the big highlights of Star Wars games that they're going to tell you were the best, I've played most of them, and most of them outside of the both KOTOR games have not aged that well. I mean, they're only good if you really had memories when they first came out, but when I look on Reddit posts of people who actually talk about playing it like first time, never playing it at launch, and they will tell you, wow, it feels really dated, it feels like something that isn't fun to play beyond like maybe 20-30 minutes. Like things like that. Like
Speaking of Battlefront, do you know what I actually missed in Battlefront 2 from Battlefront 1?
I was just saying that as an example in reference to it, though.
Yeah, sorry.
So that's why for me
it's nothing occurred to me. Do you know what really missed in Battlefront 2 that I like in Battlefront 1? Picking your own abilities and weapons and your character's looks. I really like the feeling that everybody's involved in the war against the Empire. Everybody. Anybody can be involved.
Are you talking modern Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 2?
Yes. Modern. Yeah, the current one. Sorry, okay. I'm sorry. I should have clarified. It's what kind of missed from Battlefield 1.
Oh, that's okay. It's such a confusing conversation because every time somebody brings it up, you're like, which one are you talking about?
Yeah, they probably need to come with a better name, to be honest. They probably need
that. I mean, because in Sterling's case, I mean, usually when it comes to gaming pundits, I'm a person who gives the benefit of the doubt, and people will often give me flack for this. I'm easily the person who is the most willing to defend when someone acts ignorantly, because I understand I've been there, done that. But what I often start to go into, and where it starts to go away, is when you start to demonstrate to me that you don't really even care for it. Like, again, the Jim Sterlings of the world, where he's all about integrity, and that he hates that companies are doing this or that for money. But for me, it feels really strange for him to say that when looking even just through his titles and thumbnails for what he has, and it's like, but that's not money oriented, because I know you get ad revenue from your videos. There's no way that you were just choosing these just off the cuff, and also just in general from his just blatant misreporting, like as you said for Ragtag. I mean, his narrative is still the one that people think actually happened, even though just from cursory glance, and especially in my Kotaku article, it demonstrates the opposite. Or how I often see people just claiming things so that we're not there. Like even when people are saying, because I actually read the PC Gamer article where Todd Howard was talking about 76's launch, because eventually the elephant in the room had to be addressed. What happened? And then with him admittedly to the understandably frustrating one, which is that yes, even though they had issues that they knew about in advance, but I can imagine, because as people often don't want to always admit, delays are not something that you can just secure just because whatever. For what their positions were, they likely were, all evidence was pointing to was that if they had to release the game where it was now, or if they were to try to delay it, they would actively have lost money. I mean, obviously, we can't tell whether the opposite would have happened, because hindsight is 2020, and I don't have a crystal ball that can tell me.
2020, like the election coming up. I'm sorry, I can help myself.
So that's why for me, I always say that I don't really bet on it, because for Todd Howard, he's a professional. He's been doing this as well as all three guys in that team for years. So I can only say by what the information they had at the time and how they could act on it. Because I can promise you that the people who say about how they shouldn't have done what they did, I guarantee you they would have made no better of a decision if they were in that shoes with that information.
Well, and at some point too, especially in that court, when you're in that, and I don't care if it's a public or private company, a lot of people, it's a publicly owned company, so that's why they make bad decisions, so that's why they put shit out early. No, even private owned companies, someone like Epic, Epic's probably not a good example in this case, because they're probably rolling in cash. They're paying their developers upwards of 3 times the industry standard right now.
Like that one scene from I see that picture of the big, bald black guy just like resting on like a huge pile of cash.
It's just sleeping on cash, right? Everyone's sleeping on cash, and yeah, they're probably doing 60 to 80-hour weeks. But you can buy that. You have all the money that you need, and you do it for a couple years, and you can go take a more relaxed job and just spend your money the way that you want to. But the bigger point that I'm trying to make is that even private-owned companies, generally speaking, track their projects by budget, and eventually, at some point, that money, and we could probably have a whole Twitch stream on Star Citizen. Eventually, that money comes to a point where you literally have no money left, and if you don't get something to market, you will have no money left to continue building the game. And it's not because the company doesn't have money, it's because projects only have so much money allocated to them. So if your publisher comes to you and says you have $300 million to develop Fallout, we'll call it Fallout 76, and you spend $290 million of that $300 million, you have to go to market, and you have to take that risk and sell that game, because if you don't, the game will never come out, and you will have just you'll just burn through $300 million.
And they're shooting at my robo ass. They're staring at my robo ass and they're shooting at it.
So that's actually a good point for what you said on that, though, because Star Citizen, I know that they even had some big ones. Like, I know that Henry Cavill said on his Instagram, like, he even did some voice acting for it. So I know, based on someone of his caliber, he asked for definitely, at least, even if he was for it, a very hefty sum for what his sort of work would be on that.
Yes.
And there was definitely some other big name actors whose I can't remember
Hamill's
on
in
that.
there.
So,
Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill. Luke Skywalker.
Mark Hamill was in there?
Yeah, he's also going to voice Chucky in the remake. I'm not making it up.
Yeah.
He's going to be.
I mean, yeah, that's what I remember with Star Citizen doing all this. And it's like, even my thought is, how the hell are you securing funding? Because I've known about this game for 4 years now, it feels like.
Yeah, so true story.
What? Same person asked. What about loot boxes though? Sorry, I missed your question. They're asking what about loot boxes though? I'm really sorry for missing it. I was too focused on the game.
Oh yeah. We could definitely answer the question.
Yeah. What about loot boxes though? Can I start with my take? It depends on how it was applied. If it was applied with only to give people an advantage, say a gameplay advantage, that's going to cause some problems because
honestly, especially from Ask a Game Dev, when I've had conversations with him on Tumblr on that, he honestly says that even that's not so simple, because what's a gameplay advantage is honestly something that can mean kind of anything, as it does in any hobby, really. What does gameplay advantage constitute in this case? Because quite frankly, anything can, though. If you have a much better PC than someone else, you can easily make it to where technical issues aren't something you have regularly. If you can afford better internet, especially when it comes to launch days on projects,
that's a good point.
You can be able to have much less frustration when it comes to those things.
That's a good point.
And so how is that any different?
That's
or
a
in
good
the
point.
cases of places like Asia, buying power is something that people in there actually love doing. They actually actively want to be able to pay for power in their mobile games. That's why they are centered around it. It's not because the greedy publishers want to do so. It's because people want to buy it. And it's because it's that difference between what Asian American, often more of Asian markets, though, like China and just other companies and other countries, what they want versus what Americans can want. So for me, I always say that for it, against, not in principle, because again, any execution always requires context as to how it was executed. Because in my estimate, I'm not a professional in this. I will admit up front, I am someone who's aspiring to eventually be a producer in the industry. So for me, I'm often working on getting myself a computer so I can at least try to learn how games work, though, so I can make sure that I understand it and I'm technically literate on it. But at least from what I've seen when it comes to anything, it's very rarely the idea that was the issue, but rather how it was particularly executed. Because anytime someone tells me why an idea is bad,
they said it's kind of gambling in the sense for certain cosmetics sometimes. Do you believe it was gambling? It's that seems a bit of a broad definition. The United States have tried to make a bill regulating loot boxes, but there are just too many fake parts that could be taken the wrong way, could be implemented poorly, that sort of thing. You've read.
Well, I think there's right.
You have read the.
Go ahead.
You have read the bill on it. and I remember you saying in Discord that you were not happy with it.
Well, the bill is terrible law. So, whoever asked the question about loot boxes.
Yeah,
loot
and
boxes
gambling.
in general,
One of the users chatting in here.
it's not
Wait, like
a
people over
clear-
30 say on it?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say the whole.
What constitutes as a game?
I'll just mention this. I'll go back to this real quick. The loot box bill, as you were saying, Nord, it's terrible law. If you actually read it, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
It's
If
just
the U.S. is going to pass any kind of loot box bill, it's going to have to be narrow in focus, and it's going to have to concentrate on what they actually want to outlaw. Because if you read the loot box bill as it's set now, it would throw a torpedo, a nuclear torpedo which I don't even think exists, into the middle of the games industry, and most of the games that we play today wouldn't be able to operate because there's no walls, there's no strictly.
And what about the games that
clear
played in the
definition.
past? Star Wars: The Old Republic, Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect Andromeda, The Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, it would,
you name it.
It would be a mess. It would be a complete and utter mess, and I'm very confident that bill will never see the bill might see the light of day, but the law never will.
It's like the new Green Deal, Green New Deal. It's just there to start a conversation.
Well, it seems like as Ask Game Dad thought of it, which is that it's more meant to be probably more of a conversation starter.
Yeah, that's
rather
what I just
than something
said.
That's actually meant to go and pass, which feels like something that would be through a piece of legislation that people think is maybe ludicrous, like in this case, and so people try to talk about it so they can try to debate whether this or that thing is a good idea. So I think that's a good one, though. As far as it, I'm sort of someone who doesn't really have much opinions on it. I just feel like people are going to spend their money on what they want, and if they feel like it's a bum deal for their money, they're not going to spend it. Because I find a lot of people think that when it comes to game brands, that they think that they're just going to buy it just because it's a brand, when really history shows that while in some cases that may reign, brands never really guarantee anything.
Yeah.
So like even in Battlefront 2 case, because obviously that's the elephant in the room people want to talk about when it comes to loot boxes. And the thing is, those things were not selling anyway. The only ones where people were buying them were only people who wanted to maybe do a sort of like X number of crates unlocked, though, for videos on that, since those can occasionally be popular.
Yeah.
And maybe some other people who just did it just out of curiosity. But at least from what it was shown, even during the period that it was up, nobody was buying it. If it was
That's a good point. That's a good point. I take that what I said initially.
If it was something that was even remotely being bought, they would not have canceled it as soon as they did. When they canceled it, it was because it was absolutely not making any money whatsoever.
Choice changes everything.
Which I feel like a lot of people don't really understand that point, which is that even however much of a fuss people were throwing, if it was making like DICE and EA a boatload of money, it would not have been shut down. And the reason they shut it down was because it absolutely was not granting any of them and was more likely of
the
losing.
backlash led
So
to
people will not just
So
people will not buy based on just a brand. You have to actually offer them something that they will want. Hence why I'm not really someone.
Right, it's common market sense. People are still not going to buy something they don't
Yeah,
want. And I don't care how many times they say they will.
People spoke. They voted the wallets. They literally voted with their wallets.
Yeah, and that was a good. That I always tell people that situation in Star Wars Battlefront 2 was almost a perfect example of people actually putting their money where their mouth is, and it's proof that you can change the industry by refusing to do something. And what I will say about loot boxes, to completely answer the question earlier, is that I'm adamant, and I disagree with a lot of industry pundits, that there is a model of loot boxes that works in this industry, it's non-destructive, and it doesn't abuse people like they say that it does. And I think the unfortunate part is that for a lot of these games that are released for either free or $60, loot boxes provide enough value to drive that money back to the game.
Yes,
well, a lot of people don't
remember
know that money from loot boxes,
I know that.
Right, doesn't go back. It just doesn't go into the pockets of the CEO. In fact, most of the time, CEOs are not even. A lot of CEOs get $0. Their literal salary in the company is $0.
So where did they get their money again? I kind of forgot.
through the
So,
performance of the company. If the company was
one,
performing
yeah, right.
well, they could see pay raises. But if the company is doing really badly, their pays also get severely cut too.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't really know, and really even I still don't on many aspects, as to how it works, because I know that there's more to it than that. But a lot of people are just under this implication that CEO pays as, regardless of what is happening, you get paid millions upon millions of dollars, and what happens to the company really is of no importance.
So what you're talking about is going to go into my next long form article. So I'll do the 30-second version.
Oh, sweet! I knocked down someone! Did you see that? I got a lucky throw and I knocked down someone. Did you see that?
Oh, I'm watching it now, so those CEOs...
Might want to take a run for it.
They are ownership of the company, so either they or their holding company have so many shares of stock, whether that's 10% of the stock, 20% of the stock, 50% of the stock, 100% of the stock. But they make their money through ownership. They do not make their money through literal salary from the company.
Oh, so that explains why they're so rich. That explains a lot of them are so rich. Okay.
I mean, yeah, they have, don't get me wrong, they have millions, if not billions of dollars. But that millions of billions of dollars is not directly provided from company salary. So when somebody like Sterling or Yongye or even SkillUp says the only reason they're doing this is because they're making money from loot boxes or they're making money from microtransactions, they're not giving you the whole story, because they're literally not benefiting from the sale of a microtransaction.
Yeah.
Where they're benefiting is that at the end of the year, the company might say, we're going to award you 100,000 more shares of stock, right? And that's where their value is driven from. So anyway, that's the shorter version of
Like, it reminds me of
much
what you
longer
said earlier
explanation.
about the Activision employee, because there was that context. Because when I saw that story break out of, I couldn't remember, I think it was maybe like $10 million or something like that. That was promised for a re-signing thing or whatever. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. It probably am. Well, I literally, when I saw that, I was like super angry. Like, what the hell? Activision just laid off a whole bunch of people, and this guy is meanwhile getting $10 million. Well, what I didn't know, because a lot of them were either leaving out or just didn't understand, which is the part that was only in stocks, and that's only being paid out through 4 years, and they have to demonstrate that they're growing the company in order to get said money or even see it.
I know who
could someone tell me why so people are so worked? Back to E3.
30 million.
Yeah, can we bring it back to E3? And I'm looking at one of the articles, specifically for the Avengers. Like, could someone tell me why people are so worked up over how the Avengers looked and what Captain America is wearing? Like,
I guess because people were hoping it would look more with the movies of the Avengers and how it looked in those, whereas Captain specifically, his style looks like it's trying to be a more, think like Batman Begins / Dark Knight sort of thing, where they want to.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Armor.
I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Like, basically, where it's actually, instead of a costume, it's more of actual armor that protects the user, which I guess is good in theory, though, but just circumstantial. And so that's why people were worked up on it. The rest, I think, look fine, and that's just what they are. Yeah. But people I found, like, and I'll admit I'm one of them, was in there. But anyway, I want to get back on topic, though, because I want to quickly finish that talk. What he was doing was that, because I actually bought into that outrage full sale, thinking like they just laid it off, though. But when I saw that bit of context, it now made me feel shitty with it, because it felt like I latched onto a story without fully understanding what was going on.
Same with me in BioWare back a couple months ago. I felt kind of shitty for my they've owned up to it. Just
round 1, beginning ring countdown.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why I think even Gamer, you even said on Twitter that even you don't like the Activision CEO and, like, how exactly he's rampant.
Their portfolio is, for lack of a better term, their portfolio is just completely underwhelming. I mean, what does Activision have now? And I don't take umbrage with their business. Their business model, though, is terrible. In fact, I think EA completely outclasses them in the manner of game development and support and services. The Activision has a severe problem on their hands, but what may save them, luckily for the next year or so, is this modern warfare that's coming up. But I don't like their business model. I think they're way too thin, and I think they don't provide value for the investment. Strictly speaking, if we just want to talk about buying stocks of Activision, and I will tell you personally, I actually have GameStocks, and I don't have any Activision stocks because I don't think they have enough value for what their stock
Yeah,
costs.
but you have stock, but you have stocks in EA and other companies. I'm kind of surprised they're actually doing pretty good stock wise, along with Microsoft.
Because they're actually, at least from what I understand, game developers frequently are given stocks as a sort of change up though for it. So
In the bigger companies,
the company, the bigger companies, they often give you stock plans to where they give you a set of stocks that you can sort of just either sell or just keep until it goes higher for whenever you wish.
Yeah, I remember doing that like with the 10
confirm
stocks
that.
back in high school with my financial aid classes.
Yeah, right.
I'm not
right.
I don't think I'd ever know what to do with them because I have no knowledge of stocks and how they work. So I feel like an investment, I'd have to really learn before I could ever even think about using them when I hope to enter the industry.
Yeah.
It is something that I mean.
Okay,
I
setting
don't-
up
I'm
a
not
zip
big
line.
investor. I basically try to fund. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Setting up the zip line. Whee! Sorry, I had to say
So
that.
yeah, that's why I always think about that for stuff like that though. And as you said, like for something there, because I always feel that a lot of them, and especially as I think about with Sterling and some of these other ones, because I know they often lean more into being socialist as far as like their economic philosophies. And I feel like because that they are so hung up on trying to be that, I often jokingly state with people like Jim Sterling that he's so into this role of his as being a hero of the people that he ends up not really thinking through on the stuff he's about to say. If
Well, I
only
think
he
that's
can
their
strike his
biggest
blow
problem.
against
I
the
remember
evil
I
capitalist.
remember reading something in the book once, and there's something like that about something about fighting for people, not for the people, because if you fight for the people, it will cause a lot of problems. I read that in a book written by a friend of mine. Lucifer
So
Star.
for me,
Kinda-
like, I'm not gonna
It's a,
ever
it's a,
pretend that
yeah, it's a
capitalism is the
sci-fi book.
panacea of it.
One of those,
Oh, trust me.
one of those indie books called Lucifer Star. So far, I'm kind of liking it. I would recommend it. It's on Amazon. You can easily get the book what's the Amazon thing called again? Amazon. I'm looking at my phone
Prime?
right now.
Prime, or their book subscription or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's Amazon.
Yeah.
Kindle. Yeah, Kindle. I recommend. Yeah, I really do recommend it.
Sure. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I always feel like. I also saw it with Emily Grace, which honestly I also unfollowed for like personal. Honestly, it was more personal reasons, which I'll probably do on some other stream as soon as you come on. But yeah, that's what I found was a big one, is that these people are so into wanting to be like anti-capitalist, is that it sometimes makes me wonder if they even understand the very system that they're critiquing.
Yeah.
I
also-
think there is a general misunderstanding there because, and especially, and I'll keep this point short, Sterling's view of capitalism is that it creates a race to the top and a race to the bottom. And
It's complicated.
It's complicated,
yeah,
right.
I made a tweet. It's like one of the two things I want to make is be prepared for disappointment, and one for another is inevitable. And second is you can like something as well, and you can like something and you can criticize something at the same time. It's not like you can watch two.
Like, for example, I did not like when Disney ended up buying out 21st Century Fox. I personally was completely
20th.
against such a merger. 20th Century Fox. I did not like that they were basically buying out someone who was already a pretty big player in the company, and therefore having
they're buying
even
out a
more
competitor.
Incoming care package.
buying their competitor, as well as also buying even more things. Like now they have access to the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and no doubt dozens of other IPs that Fox owns. I mean, really, the benefits that I see from it, such as, say, one day, I mean, this is now feasibly possible from a legal standpoint, having the completely original, unaltered Star Wars movies, Fox was the ones who owned the rights to that, as well as other things. Obviously, now it means that Disney can have the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in the MCU, but I did not feel that that was worth getting to go out those 4,000 people, just for, what was, in my opinion, a very minimal.
I think the 4,000 people being fired was on Fox's end, not Disney's end, if I remember right. Because it was if you remember who buys Fox, it's these people are going to be kicked out anyway.
So even though like I'm not really against it as a system, that's definitely, I'm not going to say there aren't areas of it though, which is definitely for cause of concern. But in general though, it's just that I always try to make sure I understand any of the systems that are there, because I find a lot of people who can buy it in one way or another, they tend not to understand things. And I kind of think of the same like when people proclaim how they love this movie or that game, how they very often don't even understand those ones either. So I'm not going to pretend I do. I still have a lot to learn about so many things in life that I want to make sure that I do so. So I want to make sure that if I'm ever going to be outraged, at least in the future, I mean, obviously I can still fall falter to it. I want to make sure that I'm very careful of when I express outrage over any particular thing, and to make sure that I've done my due diligence to understand.
And
it.
I was,
I'm going to fail frequently.
For example,
I will admit that.
Yeah. For example, me when was pretty outraged about some of the things going on with CDP. It's like you called out like companies like Bioware for the crunch, and you gave Rockstar, Rockstar and CDPR a pass. It's a double standard.
It's very inconsistent, hypocritical.
It's a double standard. That's what it is.
It's very hypocritical with itself, and I say that in a generality because obviously you can point to you or me or somebody else and you can say, well, I'm not a hypocrite, and I try not to be. But the video game market in and of itself is an extremely hypocritical market.
Yeah.
Because they will give a pass to a developer, like exactly like you said. Oh, well, I'm going to look the other way because I love The Witcher 3. Praise Geraldo, right? But I'm going to...
oh, I don't like Anthem, so therefore I'm now going to say that
I know, I hate
and right, yeah.
That's exactly it. It's very selective. It's selective memory. It's selective outrage, and I think you guys said it well. Is that if you're going to not like something, or if you're going to campaign against something, just be consistent.
Yeah.
Right? Apply it to CD Projekt Red and apply it to Bioware, or don't apply it. If you don't apply it to one, don't apply it to the other.
How about to be consistent with what I said and
just things
out,
like of consistency. Like I think the same like why I try to frame it instead of not using realism, because when I think of realism in games, I thought of a GDC talk I watched it long ago, which was 30 things I hate about your game pitch, which was, I think it was like point number 6, which was, in the real world no one can double jump, and said that to never use realism, or at least use it as a defense against your design, because he says about how very often you'll be asked why you made certain creative decisions, and they would never feel satisfied if you were to end up saying, oh yeah, we did it this way because you can't really do this, or that's not how it is, saying that unless what your game's selling point is a simulation, you cannot use that for that, because for the most part everything in a game is unreal in some way.
Yeah.
So to make sure that your appeal to realism is something that's both consistent as well as also something that is really core to the concept, rather than something that's very in there. Like, for example, whenever I see people criticize how a given military in a fictional universe acts, I often feel like kind of cringe with it, because I actually have at least a little bit of understanding of how militaries work in the real world. And very often how people would say, a military would do this or that, and I'm like, actually, they absolutely would. Like, Holdo from The Last Jedi saying, oh, she should have told Poe her plan. No, a person in her position actually could say, no, I don't have to explain myself to you. You're supposed to listen to me, because leaders, as well as also officers, they know information and will have skills the enlisted, someone like in Poe's area, would not have. Hence why the reason that you trust leadership is because they have skills you do not possess. If they didn't, they would not be in those positions. So hence why it's best that you, usually, I'm not saying always, but I'm speaking in generality. Conversation to try to do that, which is because a lot of leaderships are. Because you have to get it to begin as to the limitations of
Did you see that? Do you see that?
I did. I saw that.
So for me, I always say for things
sorry,
like that,
it's just that I was like, damn, I'm a badass.
Or also how generals will act, because a lot of people, as I always think of this, people seem to always mistake professional with person who does not make mistakes, when that is never anywhere even close to reality. Look at any professional and they could tell you of the stupid mistakes that they made, but they're only stupid in hindsight, not when they actually happen. People have to differentiate that you cannot, that you have to generally learn, though, that things that happen in the present is not the same, that you can't look at the same eyes as you would from someone in the future who has all that information. Like, again, what I think of Todd Howard when he said for Fallout 76, looking from his position with all the information that was gathered, it was just that you can't really guarantee that what he made was the bad decision. It looks like it in hindsight, but at the time there, it looked like the only sane option, because your other option was not releasing it. And for him, he probably didn't think that that was a thing worth doing.
Yeah, not
so
releasing is typically not. I mean, it's always on the radar of things you could do. It's typically not the second or third best option.
You ever heard this smartphone news days?
Because the thing
called,
is, I've seen when I saw a post recently that said about for game developers, which would you prefer, a game that gets released that gets canned, or ones that are, or a game that gets canceled? Unanimously, the answer was I'd rather it be poorly received because I can actually have that on my resume, whereas I can't put a canceled project on mine.
I got the elite access, guys.
So
Apex Legends. It's a
that's
thing
what
for.
I thought of it, which for me made the most sense because game developers do not want to throw away their hard work, especially when that's something that they cannot use later. Like, yes, I actually have worked on these games.
It could be
because
someone.
A cancel game means that you didn't.
That's
manage
correct.
It could be someone's magnum opus or their best take. Take a pick. Is. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I actually, I know of a developer who actually worked on a game that was terribly received, and it still helped the resume. So that situation exists. These guys, trust me, they would rather put, and girls, they would rather put the game out to the market and let it flounder and die in the market. For a lot of developers in the industry, one of the first biggest steps in development is to have the thing on the resume that says, I released a game. That's like the first major, especially if you're in an entry-level position. You don't care really where the game. You care. You put your heart and soul into it. But if the game flops in the market, for the resume, that's not as big of a deal because you can still say,
It's experience. As Loki would say in Avengers Infinity War, experience is experience.
Yep, and there's still experience, it still counts for something, and for a lot of developers, that's what they need. They need that first game to be that experience builder on the resume. Happens to.
Yeah.
That's very true, what you said.
Yeah.
So that's why I think for areas of that, and again, it's just that with professionals though, like, can professionals do stupid things? Of course, though. We're all humans after all, and professionals are now not these supercomputers who can now make only the best possible choices though. In there, even in the present situation, they could still have made choices that were bad because, again, a choice though, when it comes to hindsight, when you're doing it in the present, can seem really awesome, but then in hindsight can then seem bad later.
Alright, Shadow.
I don't judge.
You're being responded. I'll open a few crates for you to see if there's anything
perfect.
good.
I never judge decisions based on whether or not they could, or at least what it is in hindsight. I would, if I'm ever to judge a decision, because I'm not usually a judgmental person unless you make me otherwise, unless you actively demonstrate that it was something that really was, even for the time, even by what you, I am able to ascertain from what the public information is, was still a poor one. And so, yeah, that's why I always think as to why they make certain creative decisions, even if they're bad ones. I go, well, based on those professionals, though, it seemed like they only could do with the information they have at hand. Because, again,
that's a big part of it.
Is 2020.
It's very easy for the larger video game community to criticize a game's release if it was bad. It's easy to take it up. I hate to use Anthem all the time because I genuinely think.
Yeah, because I play Anthem, my brother plays Anthem. We're Bioware fans, and well, it's a fixing our memory. Who can blame us?
You're saying that it's easier for them for being like that to what exactly? To criticize it, or
it's easy, right? It's easier for the public to take a look at something that failed and then just pick apart that failed in subjective terms. But it's easy for them to pick that apart and say, why did you make this decision? It's because with all of the information and all of the game development up to that point, the only logical decision at that point was to release something into the market and continue building it. And it's easy to criticize people. It's very easy to say, why
long story short,
something.
Long story short, in place to most things, it seemed like a good idea at the time. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Yep, right. Or you would have made the same decision because money was for that project. Was easy to
already tight, because as you said,
year.
Like, if you have a $300 million budget and you've used up $290 million of that, you have to go to market and sell it, or else that game's going to get shelved. And even worse, investors may be very careful and think, oh, you know, I don't think I want to invest in that because those guys got no return from it. So there's a fair chance that could happen to me too.
Right, that is correct. Yes.
I'm surprised that Shadowhawk and I'm surprised Shadowhawk and I made it to the top 3. I really am surprised.
Hey, you guys are in top 3 right now. I think you got a chance to win this one.
I hope so too.
I mean, I've died a few times already, so I know this movie revival, so at least they were there. Yeah,
So Mix
but
is
even
going-
still, yeah.
Mix is
That's just
going-
what I think of this.
Okay.
Like, even though I know that there's a lot to learn, I certainly have a lot to learn really still on this industry, but even still, I just always want to make sure that I'm knowing reasonably as much as I can on myself, so I can make sure that I also try to understand what I'm doing. Because again, everyone always thinks that their idea is the best, but it's always to everything that the best is whether or not it actually will be. Don't worry about me, and that's something that I always want to do so, especially because I always feel like, especially as of late when I see consumption of media with movies, games, whatever, people have a really hard time just articulating why exactly they don't like it and always asking for reasons that I find they never take issue with elsewhere. Usually just like, because of this or that bad thing. Like often when I think of narrative reasons, they just don't like this, and I'm just like, it's much simpler than you're trying to make it out to be. Just
I swear Octane is built for. Off topic, but I swear Octane is very good for late game matches because in
on a console.
Octane regenerates out of combat.
Craver. I can't imagine using the Craver in the console version of this game. I'm so garbage.
That's fair. That's more than fair.
I'm the total opposite. When I tried playing with a mouse and keyboard at my friend's house to play some PC games, and I just
oh damn! We were so close. We were so close too. We were so close. It was a good run though. It was a good run.
So for me, it's just for things of that though. It's just that it just makes me feel very like sad though when it comes to that save it. Like I know it's a younger industry, and truth be told, I feel like by the time I could really be invested in the good journalists, I'll probably be too old to care by that point. Just this whole tabloid journalism thing that is in this early market though, because it feels like these guys could really do so. And Young, I remember he was an early promiser of that. I still remember when he was covering Metal Gear Solid 5 though, because it was having like a lengthy development.
All right, guys, I'm going to be doing Apex Elite. I want to see what this. I want to see what this is like. I really want to see Apex Elite. Because
I did too, though.
That's impressive.
You're going to be doing what, Nord? Say again.
Apex Elite. Basically, we're going to be touring the big boys now because I'm a robo boy with big legs.
So that's what I thought. Getting a lot of people just happy for that, and he was doing the same for Fallout 4 around the same time, or just in general just trying to drive excitement among his community for games, always just explaining like what news was coming out, interviews, and all things like that. But then, give or take, somewhere either in 2016 or 2017, he was really changing to where instead of focusing on just general news, he was being very selective on the news on there, and the news being selected was most of the time often, oh my god, thing I can criticize developers for, aka often going into the tabloid thing. I still remember that it got so bad that at one point Jason Schreier even called out Young on it, that EA was preventing BioWare from being able to make KOTOR 3, even though that Jason Schreier never reported on the thing that he was talking about, and it was trying to make it seem like it was Jason's work.
Yes.
Oh, what happened?
Like, it got that bad.
Yeah.
Holy crap, really? What? Like, did they rely on misinformation or what?
He just completely butchered the story. The story was that I think it was even BioWare said we have looked at it, but we don't really want to make it. And y'all took that as EA telling BioWare they couldn't make it, and then Schreier had to clarify that no, it did not come from EA. It was BioWare who said that
it's what one of the founders of a BioWare
and
said.
I also feel like another reason to that is really that Disney wouldn't allow it, because this is a brand thing really, because KOTORs 1 and 2 are firmly in the Legends brand, so meaning that things that happen that are considered no longer canonical. So for them to release,
it would be nice though. It would be
put
nice.
it in a very tricky place, because now it would be considered part of the canon brand, and because Disney has made it clear they will not support anything Legends material. Really, the only reason the Old Republic gets a pass is solely because it's still making money for Disney. So they're like, you guys already had this running, and at least EA made them kind of understand that it's an MMO. They have to keep doing stuff with it. So Disney probably just went like, whatever, we'll allow it for this. But they firmly made it clear that they will never let it personally go out for that. So for it, I just knew even from a legal standpoint, it's the same reason like when I remembered Ackman was saying for the same thing, like the reason why Imperial Commando would never be made was because EA doesn't want to do it. Well, no, it's because EA wouldn't even be allowed to do it, even if they were to like get on their knees and beg to Disney about it. Because again, that's in the Legends brand, and Disney is not going to allow them to make anything that is not within that canon brand.
They gotta keep that authenticity canonical stuff. No. So I just had to be snarky, I'm sorry.
Yeah, because that's a thing they have to do, and also because you don't want to have consumers being confused on it, which is, wait, so you're making a sequel to this game, but it's not actually a thing that happened within at least the so-called canon brand. Yeah, so that's a thing that's definitely going to make people go, why the hell am I playing this? I'm effectively paying fan fiction, which is not a problem for me, but for a lot of people, fan fiction is like a big iffy thing.
Yeah. Tell me about it. When I used to play Star Wars, it was and finally when Disney said that this stuff is not part of the canon, it was great. It was because they couldn't fight about it anymore. They couldn't fight that the Old Republic was now it was great because they cut it out and they just said, you guys
fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start. It was. I actually really liked it. I know a lot of people hate it. Go ahead, no, sorry.
Are you a fan of the BioWare Star Wars games? Just curious.
I used to be that, but as time went on, I just found that it was a really childish thing to honestly fight over. Like, honestly, who cares? It's just a series that you really love. Why should Coach War not be canon, so to speak, affect your engagement of it?
I am repairing myself.
Right, I mean, at some point you have to accept that it's a game, and it's a game that if you're applying so much time and effort into the canon or the story or whatever, I totally respect the decision on an individual level, but I can also criticize it. And I can say it seems kind of silly. It seems to be denying yourself something that would be enjoyable just because it's not part of the movie screen version. I guess I don't. Agree with
the current continuity.
I don't really either. I just kind of would say if I just to let whatever the studios want to do to be able to just make the games that they want. But again, I understand though because the fact that I know a lot of pundits, I know especially in Ackman's case, who try to say like, oh, though, like people don't really do this. Yes, people are regularly consuming content much more and much easier than at any point in human history. This is no longer the days where if you missed a movie or such, you could be completely lost. Now, if like say for the recently finished Game of Thrones, if I tune in, let's just dive the clock back a while and say I started watching the show,
very good thing. I am very good thing.
Even if I saw season 4, even if I had no idea what was happening, I could just either look it up on my phone through Wikipedia or through some other sort of wiki to let me know what the events are, or I could just simply pull out the episodes and just watch them in however order I want. Content to access is so easier now, and now with these days, because of how easy it is now, things like movies, games, and television shows, they are all interconnected, so that means that people often do remember the stuff that happens.
Yeah.
It's not really much of an issue if you're talking about the comics or the novels, because nowhere near as many people keep up with it, but for a lot of people it is an issue though if say something happens in a movie that seems to contradict in some major way what happened in the movies and such.
Yeah.
So for that,
I
understand it's a new version of how media is now consumed, because for a lot of people, and that's why I mentioned for like Republic Commando, for instance. I mean, for it though, Delta Squad itself is canon thanks to the Clone Wars animated show, where Delta Squad made a very brief appearance in like season 3. So a game centered around them could happen, but so it could be a sort of spiritual successor if someone in EA really wanted to actually do it. It just couldn't be Imperial Commando because, again, you have that thing where it would be supporting a Legends brand that people wouldn't want, and it comes with that question of, well, if these events didn't happen, why would I care? I mean, it's effectively I'm playing fan fiction, which, again, I have no issue with, but apparently these people do. So, again, it's just a big...
People get invested too much in these kind of things.
I can understand it, and I'm not personally against it, but it's, as you kind of said, though, that it kind of feels like you're just denying yourself a game because of a kind of frivolous reason.
Take you guys somewhere safer.
Yeah, I mean, right, and I don't want to criticize people too much, but it's like, and I dealt with all the years I played Star Wars: The Old Republic. So many people were so pissed that it was in that gray area, or that that Disney was about to disavow it as being canon. I was like, does that deny you any knowledge you had of the game prior?
On the other hand, I think the new continuity has been reintroducing elements from the Legends continuity.
Oh, yeah, they have, though.
Yes, they have that. They have
And now
to
it
be.
seems
That's
though
very
that
true.
I don't, at least from what I can see, it seems like Kathleen Kennedy is sort of also giving thoughts to it, which doesn't surprise me, because again, Knights of the Old Republic is by far the most well-loved Star Wars game of people in my generation, for good reason, because out of all the Star Wars games, I felt like BioWare's games are the only ones that have not really suffered with age, in my view.
Yeah.
From that,
Some
because it's really
some
compelling
parts of
stories,
writing, some
setting.
parts of writing didn't age well, but still, yeah, for the most part, it held up.
So
And
for me, I
Obsidian's,
felt like
yeah,
it was-
and Obsidian's
Yep.
second Cortar game. Don't forget that.
Yeah, of course not.
You know what? I never played that game, and I actually have it on Steam, and I have been so tempted to install it and then install the patch that like patches together the last chapter or the stuff that they basically allowed to be a patch to fix the end of the game. And I've been so tempted to play it, and I just haven't done so yet. I really need to do so.
You don't
I
have
would
any
definitely
idea?
say give it a try if you have. I know you're very busy between work and you said because you have a family that you support.
Yeah,
but
it's crazy,
I would
man.
say if you definitely do, definitely give it a try. In my opinion, I consider the second game better. But I would say though for it is that it's a really compelling game that has a lot of definitely just a lot of stuff, a nuance though that comes with it. And just in general, it just has many of the most emotionally impactful views of it. I've always, even though so far Kreia has only made her only major appearance throughout all of Star Wars in this one game, she has easily been one of the best ones and easily one of the most well realized of all the game characters that were in there. She had a lot of nuance to it, where even if she exactly wasn't crazy on Sith, she also wasn't exactly acting like the Jedi were this perfect thing, and often even talked about for things like morality, even though I feel like the morality system kind of puts you at odds with some of the choices that they made, but I feel like nevertheless it made her really compelling to be able to make, and so I would say that they did a really fantastic job there, hence why I consider KOTOR 2 the best Star Wars game that was made, and definitely the one that has aged the best.
Yeah, it's kind of funny that one of the lead writers, Chris Avallone, had a bit of a backlash against his own game. And
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, and thinking about The Last Jedi also reminded me of KOTOR 2. And he also
because The Last Jedi definitely, I would say, had elements that KOTOR was even talking about. So that's where I would definitely believe that it could have had some inspiration, though.
Yeah.
So that's why I think its influence is big, though. It was only for me just such a shame that the game, because of the realities of game development, didn't come in the way that they wanted. Because looking at what their original scope was, it was at least twice as big as what actually came out, and was definitely, in many respects, radically different from what their original was. Even the endings was radical, though. And the one they had was something they had to like hastily throw together.
Well, and isn't that why they Obsidian even themselves or whoever owns the IP said,
it's a mod.
We encourage you to install the mod because it actually finishes what we had intended to finish, or something along those lines. They actually want people to install the mod. I was reading that somewhere, and I don't remember where. But they want.
And also, that's the other thing is that had the current system for DLC been around, some of that content could absolutely have been salvaged.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, we could have had the HK Droid Factory, the M427 Droid Factory that was there. Also, Lona Vash was supposed to actually be alive, but because they couldn't finish her levels, they had to hastily make it to where she died on Korriban instead. Things like that, though, like, it was even the small areas you could actually access, it was so radically different. Even Atris was actually supposed to meant to be a companion at one point, and there was even a slot that was dedicated to her.
That's just very fat. I love getting into the whole Unseen 64, all the unfinished stuff, in games. It's just fascinating. I still am. I shouldn't say used to. I still am really into, like, when someone releases the video of a game that never got released, just seeing what was there. Stuff's so cool. It
is, though. I love seeing that. I mean, while there is a bit of sadness, like, oh, it couldn't be there, but I always have the understanding, like, well, considering the circumstances that were there, it's understandable why it wasn't able to be finished because of budgets, scheduling, things like that. And I think that a lot of people, especially for Star Wars, miss the scheduling thing. Like, really, like, even when it came to EA Motives, though, when they had to also cancel again that original project that they picked up from Visceral, it's because, for especially a Star Wars game, scheduling is so important for something like that. The reason why a lot of Star Wars games ended up only doing so-so in their sales was really because a lot of them didn't have a movie to actually accompany them with, and so and also because they were coming out too fast. And for something like Star Wars, especially with a modern game though, in this sort of current sphere, if you don't release your Star Wars game in the coming release of a new movie, whether obviously Episode 9, so Jedi Fallen Order is accompanying that, or like in 2022, whenever Benioff and Weiss, when their movie ends up going off.
Yeah.
And so basically,
Yeah, I was speaking of these guys.
If they do not release it in that sphere, the amount of sales they will lose is so drastic that they will say that we have to cancel it then because we will lose way too much money if we try to release it. Again, it's
Guys, North.
You've seen the final season of Game of Thrones, right?
I have not. I have only watched the first.
Well, you've heard the backlash against it for the way the thing for the way it folded out.
Nice.
I honestly watched it, but I will probably at some later inevitable point watch it for curiosity. But honestly, whenever I hear large backlash on it, for the most part, I always find that I end up just going, "Wait, this was the thing you were angry over." Like,
yeah.
I even remember recently because my mom wanted, she wanted to use my HBO account though because she wanted to have that so she could watch some of HBO shows in Justice League. So I had that. Okay, Justice League, this movie that people insisted to me was the worst movie of 2017. Okay, I'll go watch that. I did, and I went, okay, it's like okay,
yeah, right.
But I can't really see what was the,
Help me out, dude.
but I couldn't really see what was the super extensively like how did this happen kind of into it. I mean honestly, especially for Zack Snyder leading for very understandable reasons.
Yeah. I was pretty close.
For someone like him leaving. But honestly I felt like for even the issues it had, it came out not really all that bad.
Yeah,
Again,
there are actually worse movies released back then.
That it was just standard bad, but I couldn't really go in saying it was one of the worst things that I saw by any long shot. It's not fantastic, four-stick levels of badness or anything like that.
I never seen that movie. I'm glad I didn't.
Out, so I'll probably go and see Dark Phoenix to also see what that one is out of just morbid curiosity. But again, I'm willing to bet I'm gonna walk out going, at worst, it was bad, but nothing I haven't seen before.
Yeah, I've seen X-Men Origins Wolverine. We managed to pirate it.
That one was pretty bad, but I'm still not sure if it deserved the levels of vitriol it got. I think the reason I dislike the sort of huge backlash when it comes to any movie or game is that a lot of people can't seem to differentiate the product from the creators and feel like they have to
when people didn't want people didn't want
doing stuff like that.
The guys who did
I still
remember.
I was so angry when I saw Kelly Marie Tran when she was being harassed so badly. She had to basically excommunicate from social media and delete everything from her Instagram just because she couldn't actually take it. And for me, it was just such a disgusting thing to witness. Yeah, and even in the games industry, I saw some of the other stuff on that as well. I remember BioWare sort of having even an employee though. She was a Dragon Age writer who ended up
Jennifer Hepler. Her name's Jennifer Hepler.
Huh?
Jennifer Hepler.
Yeah,
she expressed that she wasn't a fan of combat in games, and people were
because she was a narrative designer, not a combat one, and people were blaming her for Mass Effect 3 combat among other things that she was not involved with, which again shows further ignorance that a lot of these people don't understand, is that not people in the games industry work on different things. The person who's making the maps of a multiplayer game is probably not the same one who's working on new characters or weapons.
It is very the mob mentality attaches itself to not only movies but games very often.
Yeah, I know, that's why I said when it came to games and movies and such, is people feeling that.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
I mean, me personally, the worst I can feel over any movie is really ambivalence over it. I still remember earlier this year when I saw Miss Lala when that came out, though, because I was seeing so much advertisement.
Oh god, we're going to be in a populated area. I'm going in a popular segment of this area.
And when I actually went and watched it, even though I thought it was a bad movie, I couldn't say I hated it. I just felt nothing about it in one way or another.
Oh.
Things like that. Fan 4 Stick was in that same vein where I just felt nothing for it, just really just bored for the most part. Because I think there's always something redeemable in really any game or movie or show that you see out there.
Sure.
I mean, whether how redeemable is out there is always up to you, because I always think, like, yeah, just go with what's good for you. But for me, I never just like when people claim like there's no redeeming qualities in this or that thing. No, there typically is, though, and I always see why people like it. I mean, just for all that, like, even Batman v Superman, even though I think it's a terrible movie, I don't begrudge anyone who actually ends up saying that they loved it, though. Like, my mom even was recently watching the DC movies because she was just curious about it, and she admitted that she actually thought Batman v Superman was a pretty good movie, and I've seen a lot of people online also express that sentiment. So when I've listened to their reasons on YouTube and other ones to see why exactly they like it, even if I still walk away going, I don't agree with you, but hey, it's great that it gives you that level of
Though I couldn't help but make
more power to you.
Though if people like the reason, and I just couldn't help but say, Martha, or piss in the jar.
Yeah, things like that, which were
we
just
can laugh at this stuff, right? I mean, that's if you're gonna criticize, at least find those moments where you can laugh or enjoy it or something along those lines, right?
Sorry, my brother is here, and he's eager to play D&D on the computer with his friends. So I better wrap it up real quick with this match if I can. Really, I'm sorry, Nicholas.
Yeah, sure.
Really, I'm sorry, guys.
That's just what I say for things.
It was a good run, everybody.
Yeah, also, definitely next time, make sure that I would definitely like to have you on a stream again. I feel like we could have so much talks over the industry over that, because this is better really for me than Twitter.
Yeah, and for some reason, the first half hour seems to lose his body, and
so in general, yeah, that's things like that. It's definitely good to on that one though. But I have to say that when it comes to personally talking about it, like with friends, though, is that a lot of them also are pretty open-minded when it comes to learning about things in the industry. You just have to tell them about it. Usually, like, they're just like, yeah, I kind of heard of something about that, but I find that if you explain it, they're actually more than happy to go and listen. It's just, I feel that it's just
That's very true. Well, guys, my time here is short, so I gotta run, but it's been an absolute pleasure discussing it.
You too. Oh, definitely. Yeah, we can do that. We can do it again next week. Yeah, we can probably do it again next week, depending on the schedule.
We usually do these things weekly, so you can always just let us know like when you're available, and then we'll definitely be more than happy to have you on.
Yeah, and we'll play out the games like Fallout 76, even Star Wars Battlefront 2,
Anthem. I also have Anthem as well, so if you want to go hang out,
I'll let you know what I have. You guys are playing on Xbox.
Yeah,
right?
we all play on Xbox. I just use the Xbox on my computer because
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right, guys. Well, that was fun.
Yeah. I better find someone to host real quick.
One, though, and we hope to see you next time on.
I better make sure I find someone to host. Yeah, thank you, GameOverThirty, and be sure to check them out on Twitter and check out Jonas Gaming. I'll be linking those. When I post it on YouTube. And to wrap it all up, we'll see you all next time.
Thanks,
see you all next time.
Have a great one.
All right.
You too, guys.
All right, bye.